It's the start of a brand new campaign. The 2021 Michelin Le Mans Cup brings us to Barcelona after this venue was very much missed last year, when originally we'd planned to come here, but it wasn't possible because of the current ongoing health crisis, sadly. But things in Spain have improved, certainly from when we were looking to visit in the summer of 2020, and delighted to say that it is our first stop-off of 6 for a brand new campaign for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, combining LMP3s, all 26 of them, and a GT3 entry as well. GT3, if you go back far enough, used to be part of the main ELMS entry, but became its own initiative in 2016, initially with the GT3 Le Mans Cup, and then the following year, 2017, LMP3s were added. And what this also provides is the perfect opportunity to go racing at Le Mans on the 8.5-mile circuit, with 2 races arranged for later on this schedule, 2:55 minutes during Le Mans week itself. My name's Johnny Palmer, joined again by Graham Goodwin. We were overlooking qualifying earlier today, Graham. 2 15-minute sessions for each of the classes. My, that LMP3 session was busy.
It was indeed. Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new season with a lot of new, as we were saying in the earlier qualifying show. A packed grid of very high quality teams, cars and drivers. Some very new faces, happily some returning old faces too. The very colourful Ronaldo racing car there, let's make sure. We do have some bad news, I'm afraid, before we start this race, in that one of the cars we saw in qualification, Johnny, I'm afraid will not be joining us for the race.
Yeah, and it was a quick car as well. The machine of Sarah Bovy, Belgian racer, brought into that team at the fairly late hour to join Dorian Pain, who I was really looking forward to seeing how she would get on. Dorian Pain, particularly the 17-year-old talent from France, but we're still getting to grips with exactly what the drama was for the number 9 car.
It's some kind of form of technical issue on the number 9 Lynx Ferrari, but sadly that does remove a car that, you're absolutely right, I was thoroughly looking forward to much the same. Every piece of feedback I'd had about young Miss Pain has been very positive indeed, but we will have 5 more race meetings this year to relish that prospect, and that will not take too much away on it, I don't think, from what should be a very intriguing race indeed. Excellent battle for pole, excellent battles up and down the field with some tiny gaps between the cars, and of course for every one of these cars at least one driver we've not seen before this weekend.
Yes, so the influx of new is very present indeed. Now, we're already into warm-up for these cars, which is a relatively new feature. It happened for much of the meetings last year, and will also be part of the schedule for tomorrow's European Le Mans Series as well. So the time is actually ticking up to, or down to 10 minutes, is it?
Yeah, they have 1 minute more before the pit exit closes, and we get into pre-race. But gives us a bit of a time to have a quick look at some of the runners and riders here.
Well, yeah, not that these times count for anything, but it is an opportunity just to kind of shake off any cobwebs that may have built up during the lunch break. And a lot of the drivers as well will have been on ELMS duty, then need to get back into the groove of how their Michelin Le Mans Cup machine is set up. So it just serves as a reminder, and it means that everyone should be theoretically in the zone ahead of a 2-hour race, and it's a busy 2-hour race, particularly for the LMP3s, because each of the cars will have to pit on 2 separate occasions, and each for 130 seconds.
Correct.
The first pit stop, strictly for driver change, has to be done before the hour mark, and you can also change tyres and fuel the car at that point. The second stop, that has to be done after the 1 hour and 40-minute marker, can only be for fuel. Everything else is ruled out, and this is purely because of the slight discrepancy, you might say, but has now been very much embraced by the regulations regarding the new engine that was introduced last year, the new Nissan engine, which is Orica race prepared. Bigger machine. It's a 5.6 rather than the 5 litre of old, but it's a thirsty bit of kit, and it means that into the strategy you now have to weave an extra pit stop.
Yep, absolutely. Here's one of the new look cars for this season. It's an AF Corsa run Ligier for Rui Aguas, pro driver of old, and Craig Landudis, who has been a very prominent player in the historic racing paddocks, amongst other things. Owns one of the Peugeot 908 HDI FAP LMP1 chassis that is out there in the Wild. And I do wonder just what Crichton is looking towards future years. He's clearly got his head around that 850 horsepower beast. Now he's got to get to grips with the 430 horsepower or so that we've got aboard these Ligiers in contemporary competition. This is the new look for the Cool Racing squad this year. Team with a new look, new management.
But the 4.6 kilometre circuit we need to pay close attention to, split into 3 sectors at Barcelona, and home of the Spanish Grand Prix, of course, with a reprofiled turn 10. So that is slightly more open than it has been historically. Maybe, I don't think it's taken any opportunity to overtake away, but you just need to approach your overtake slightly differently now, and there is the scope to push around the outside without the risk of maybe side-to-side contact. There's a bit more space on the exit on the run out of that corner. It means that you're going to be reaching turns 11 and 12 at a higher speed as well. So an interesting addition, or revision more specifically. It has changed the length of the track very slightly, but notably it's changed the lap times as well. And we were already comparing lap times to 2 years ago rather than last year, so there was bound to be a difference, and it's proven so in the times that we've seen, not only in the pre-test earlier this week, but also in these sessions leading into the race. CD Sport, Spanish outfit, with Michael Jensen labelled as the starting driver in car 33. That means he'll be handing over to Adam Iteki, the French silver-rated driver. They are the only Spanish team on the grid, although Team Virage, with strong ties to this country, being based in Valencia, although they are Polish flagged these days. We're not going to have an LMP2 car in this race, by the way. That's just the Dragon Speed USA car being wheeled out of the way of everybody else. The normal home for these Michelin Le Mans Cup cars is out in the paddock, but they occupy the working area in front of the ELMS garages purely for this race. It's quite an undertaking to get the tyre trolleys and the pneumatic drills, pneumatic guns, and the fuel as well. Make sure that all of that is in place ahead of this 2-hour race.
Another of our additions for this season, and very welcome on to the 10Q Racing team with their Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo.
Yeah, so great to have a different manufacturer represented in GT3 for season 2021. We'll run you through the assembled grid in a moment, but first of all we head to the pole-sitting team, Cool Racing, with Hayley Edmonds.
That's right, I'm down here, joined by Josh Skelton, who drives the number 37 Cool Racing. Fantastic debut, if you like to say. You're sitting in pole, getting ready for this Michelin Le Mans Cup first round. How are you feeling? And what are your expectations? I mean, what are you expecting from this? What are going to be the biggest challenges for you as 2 rookies to ELMS?
Now, we did hear from Josh earlier on. I was struggling to hear a lot of what he said, unfortunately, but it will have been similar thoughts to earlier. Josh, straight out of UKF4, and I think this is his first venture into European racing.
It certainly is, certainly in sports car racing, and very welcome he is too. Part of a really strong influx into sports car racing, into the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series this year.
Yes, he did the season of BRDC Formula 3 with Chris Dittman Racing last year, but so 3 seasons of single-seaters, now into an all-out prototype, the 2-seater version of that. He'll be used to downforce. He won't be used to sharing the car and meeting this sort of halfway house in terms of setup. And the amount of downforce that these cars can produce, even at P3 level. Absolutely.
These are significantly high-performing machines. I'm talking to 1 or 2 of the newcomers through this week. We've had a lot of testing this week, pre-season testing for the LMS Monday, Tuesday, a full day of testing for Michelin Le Mans Cup on Wednesday. And I wouldn't quite say wide-eyed, but we've got some new players here, very impressed indeed with the capabilities of the machines. We'll be seeing them in throughout the year. And remember, you know, down through the last few years, the names that we've seen coming through Michelin Le Mans Cup, up into ELMS and to WC and elsewhere, both on the pro side and on the gentleman driver side on their journey up through the the pyramid of competition. These are the new names you're hearing in this broadcast today and throughout this season are the names that we're going to be talking about further up that pyramid in the seasons to come, as motorsport, certainly endurance motorsport, starts its journey now into a brand new era.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is open only for LMP3 cars. Pit exit is open only for LMP3 cars.
The dulcet tones of Portuguese race director Eduardo Freitas there, as just this explosion of LMP3s happens down in pit lane. It might only be the LMP3s that are being called forward to head to the release lap and then ultimately to their position on the dummy grid, but it is such a sight to see Ligiers, Duquesne and the little Adesse as well part of the lineup. 26 cars entering the Michelin Le Mans Cup just in the LMP3 category. If
the film Zulu had been about motorsport, it would have looked at one point a bit like that, wouldn't it, as they charged towards you. That was an extraordinary moment. You almost feel as if the drivers, they've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this moment. I have to say, Johnny, what a joy it is to be at a racetrack.
Yes.
And you know, we wish all you listening in and watching in, we're here with us to enjoy it live. That time will come. For now, sit back, relax, hopefully with a soothing
GT3 cars may go on the grid. GT3 cars may now go on the grid.
Johnny's now for what I hope is going to be thoroughly entertaining the next couple of hours.
Suffice to say, even though most of you will have to wait a little bit longer to come back to a racetrack, it has lost none of its attraction, of the sound, of the environment, of just that whole kind of encompassing experience, visceral experience of a race meeting. It just needs a big old crowd in that grandstand on the main straight, and we really hope it's not very far away before we can start to welcome back crowds to the European Le Mans Series, because we are missing you big time. For the moment then, for the time being, we'll have to try and bring across the competition as well as we can via the medium
Cars 7 and 20
radio
are under
and
investigation
television,
for pit exit procedures.
as the number 20 car heads down towards turn 1, which is the Grey Market Racing machine of Mark Crader, who undoubtedly will start, and Alex Mortimer, the silver, to take over at roughly half distance. That's how it reads on my screen. And remember, you need to have made your driver change before the hour mark, and generally teams were coming in at about the 50-minute marker last year, the earliest opportunity to pit, if indeed you've decided to go with your bronze for the starting stint, and then hand over just before the hour is done.
Well, I'm not sure this is showing us the drivers in the cars at the moment, is it?
Well, I didn't have an issue with Mark Crader, but you may well have spotted one or two other drivers that are a surprise. Finn Gersit's inserted into the number 5, Anton Duquesne, who did qualifying. But let's get some more news from the pits from Iron Links. Here's Haley again.
That's right, I'm down here in the Iron Links garages with one half of the pole sitters, Paolo Ruberti. Now, Rino Mastronardi took the pole earlier and he's just out on the track. I mean, how are you feeling going into this first race here in Barcelona?
Yeah, we are very excited. Hopefully the weather still like that, so the dry race, because we did a very good pace during the practice yesterday, so we hope it will be a dry race and try to do our best.
We've heard that car number 9 is not actually going to be taking to the track. What's the issue?
What you say, sorry?
Car number 9?
Yeah.
Why is it not taking to the track?
I don't know what happened. I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much, Paolo.
Thank you.
Well, in fairness, not his car. I wonder whether he probably does know the reason and doesn't necessarily want to speak out of turn from the team, because the team will issue a press release with all the details on there, and he doesn't want to be ahead of that. Let's remind you of the grid then. It will be Josh Skelton to start, according to my document anyway, for the Cool Racing car. So there is a difference on my timing screen as far as the starting driver is concerned for 37, alongside Finn Gerssit, so that's correct. Torsten Kratz rather, for WTM, powered by Phoenix, will start from 3rd alongside the Mulner Motorsport Matthias Luton car. Team Virage and Julien Gerby
1 minute board
for the Polish outfit, number 16. Green
report
on the
on the
third
grid.
row, alongside Nielsen Racing's Tony Wells. Matt Bell for Cool, alongside John Schaumann, the 23 United Autosports car. Team Virage and Rob Hodes, alongside Mulner Motorsports' Erwin Creed. And then it's Mikey Benham for RLR and the CD Sport Michael Jensen. Next up, it'll be Jacques Voul for Racing Team Le Mans and TS Sports Pietro Peccinini. Daniel Schneider for United Autosports alongside the Rinaldi racing car of Alexander Matschel. 17th and 18th will be Jerry Kraut for United alongside Dona Munding for Black Falcon, another team recognised from German motorsport, World GT Racing as well. Motorsport 98 will have for the opening stint Eric de Donker alongside Auden Gudmundsson for Team Thor. 11th row Rinaldi Racing Steve Parrow and DKR Engineering's John Brownson. Then it'll be Edex Sport Patrice Lafargue and the AF Corsa car of Crichton Lendudis. Grain Market Racing, Mark Crader already mentioned. Rino Mastronardi for Iron Lynx. The 14th row will be the PZ Obera Zurichsee by TFT Porsche and Nicky Leutwiler alongside Boyan Pan, but we know the 9 car will not be there. She was due to start 28th. Wim Spinoy for the 93 Mercedes crew 10Q Racing team alongside the Arbreits competition Simon Iscalier in the Ades 03 and Ken Arbe for AF Corsa in the unusual Ferrari blue at the back of the field car 51.
Good looking blue it is.
It
too.
really is.
And the Arbreits competition car, one to watch for out there, the 56 car. First time in many moons we've seen one of the Ades chassis, Ades 03 Evo here. We will be seeing a second Ades chassis in Michelin Le Mans Cup competition later this year, because that's the chassis that we're going to have the addition of the H24 hydrogen electric prototype that will be joining us, we believe at the moment, from round 2 at the Red Bull Ring. Exciting times to come.
Still a slight issue for me as to who's going to be starting this Cool Racing 37 car. It definitely says on my starting grid document that was issued by Alcamel earlier on in the day it's due to be Josh Skelton, but clearly he wasn't in a rush to get in the car when chatting to Haley. So I think there's maybe been a late tweak there to the submitted starting driver, and it's Antoine Ducoin.
Well, if we do have the drivers that are currently shown on timing and scoring start of the race, it means that the top 5 teams have all opted to start their young guns. So that is going to be effectively 2 races here, Johnny. It's going to be 5 young guns at the head of this grid, and then for the most part the gentleman drivers beyond that, which means that when we get into the second half of this race, it's going to be a whole new deal.
Well, yes, and even though they're young guns, they're not necessarily yet silver-rated drivers. In the case of Finn Gersitz, yes, we know he's rapid, he's 16 years old, but he is officially a bronze on the entry list, with Hamza Ovega still to come as the silver. So that, even before we've got started, looks to be a very strong car indeed. Torsten Kratz, who is next on the grid, a little older than those that the company that he keeps. But it's the strongest Duquesne in qualifying, and the machine powered by WTM, Wochenspiegel Team Monschau, a team well known from running Ferraris in what was the VLN, now the NLS, and the Nürburgring 24 hours as well. But brilliant to have such a recognised team now into Michelin Le Mans Cup, powered by Phoenix, another well-known entity from other disciplines in motorsport, and actually Phoenix prepared cars 2nd and 3rd on the grid ahead of another German squad, Mulner Motorsport, who are no stranger to the front row of these races. I think they bagged front rows on at least 2 occasions in 2020. So we're all set for, to some degree, a launch into the unknown. I don't think we've ever had such a low average age, quite possibly, in the Michelin Le Mans Cup because of this influx of teenagers. We've got the gentlemen and we've got the professional business people drivers still very much part of this, but this influx from single-seaters and in some case karting means that it's going to be an intriguing campaign, and it's very tough to predict. The GT3 cars are towards the rear of the field, remember. Rino Mastronardi coming off the back of a title in the 2020 Michelin Le Mans Cup, wanting to defend that again with Iron Lynx. He starts 26th in car number 8, and we're about ready to go then for a brand new season of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, live here from Barcelona. It is round 1 of 7, and down this long straight, 31 cars will power their way into action, and they're not backwards in coming forwards here by virtually going 4 abreast on the run down towards turn 1. Antoine Ducoin gets a good getaway. Torsten Kratz is up there into 2nd position in the white car, but then spins, and Kratz He's right in the middle of a very busy field, sensibly checks out actually as quickly as he could, and that meant that anyone that was potentially going to run into the side of the number 11 car was able to avoid it. The drama at the first corner, hopefully that's a sign of things to come, but we don't want to see any incidents quite as much as that, as more and more LMP3 cars stream out of turns 3 and 4, and the leader is very definitely Antoine Ducoin for Cool Racing from Finn Gersitz for Phoenix. Morris Smith with a good getaway in the other Cool Racing car, and it's Mikey Benham in 4th for RLR.
Yeah, two wily old foxes in Morris Smith and Mikey Benham, big winners in all that. That was probably heads-up stuff from Torsten Cranston. Check out, as you quite rightly said, that looked like a horrible moment, and he got the power in and just ducked out of the way, but that was topsy-turvy stuff. Let's keep an eye on those 3rd and 4th place, 4th and 5th place cars in the order, because as you quite rightly said, we've got the teen army at the front, and then we've got the wily old foxes following on behind.
Jack Wolf and Rob Hodes having a good jostle for position, 5th and 6th currently for Team Virage and Racing Spirit of Le Mans respectively. Tony Wells isn't very far away either in the number 7 Nielsen Racing car, and Julian Gerby, who started a bit further up for Team Virage, has lost positions, but you don't really need to think too much about that. There was always going to be some losers and some gaining, but this is a long race, and there's opportunity always for things just to settle down, and then you can work out who you need to overtake in this stint, who is probably better left alone, and pick your battles wisely. Because if you start trying to win this race in the opening couple of laps, it's going to end in disaster, as the old adage goes. Lights flashing from Team Virage car. That, I think, was Julian Gerby showing Tony Wells that he's raring to get by, but Wells will take more distracting than that. Daniel Schneider and Matthias Lutin for United Autosports and Mühlner Motorsport not too far away. And in the early stages, there's already been a change in the GT3 lead. Nicky Leutwiler in the PZ Oberer Zürichsee Porsche up now to lead that class car number 2.
Keeping an eye on the now recovering Torsten Kratz. He's down in 22nd position, just behind the lead. Porsche just goes up the inside now and takes 21st place. If we look again here, that is the lead change, and that was a good opportunist move from Nicky up the inside of the Ferrari to take the GT lead. Get the impression here, Johnny, that this pair outruns on a couple of the others behind in Antoine Ducoin and Finn Gersitz. We're going to be watching this all season. These two are going to be battling. This is a bit of a battle for supremacy to catch the eye of those that might be looking for who the answer is to their forming their sports car racing teams for the better part of the next decade.
Well, if you didn't already know, this is a 17-year-old leading a 16-year-old for Cool Racing and Phoenix Racing, the future of endurance motorsport, quite possibly. And the thing is, as soon as you get that generation interested in this type of racing, then hopefully the floodgates will open and so many other people's eyes will be awakened to it.
Lendudis
in the 31 has had a moment, I think, on his own. AF Corsa prepared machine in the white and blue colours. Now needs the reverse gear as well.
I suspect that's Greek colours for the Greek driver.
Spot on.
Hadn't occurred to me until that moment. But, so there you go. Let's have a quick look here.
It all makes sense.
There was a bit of a touch there to the TS Corsa car, the 73 car,
with Pietro Peccinini doing the driving for the opening stint. That's one of a handful of Duquesnes that are part of the entry this year Le Mans Cup. 1:44.138 is the fastest lap target to beat. That one comes courtesy of our leader, Antoine Ducoin. So Ducoin, Gersitz, Morris Smith for also Cool Racing in the 69 car, shares that once more with Matt Bell. As then at the inside goes Nicky Leutwiler of a prototype.
That's Steve Parrow.
And Parrow just a little slow in the Rinaldi Racing red and black colours, and Parrow needing to be aware that the Porsche was there, but the positioning from Leutwiler was expert, and thankfully Parrow didn't even come close to driving close to him on the inside of that turn. So really busy start. Cool Racing mightily impressed with it, and the spin right in the middle of the pack from Torsten Kratz and the WTM powered by Phoenix car. But I do think how he extracted himself there from potential disaster was such heads-up driving. Couldn't have done much about the spin, whether that was all on his own on cold tyres or whether in a helping hand, not quite sure, even though I've seen a couple of replays now. But yeah, to be able to react that quickly, mightily impressive.
It didn't look to me as if he's had contact. I think he might have just done that by himself. Looks as it was quite Lendoudis at the moment is shown as stationary, stopped on track. I'm not quite sure. We'll keep an eye out and see if we can see the blue and white car.
Well, he definitely left the scene from turn 10, but whether there's been a secondary problem with the car.
He's moving.
Okay, good. Being displayed as a lap down. That might well be the case
I think he is.
to Antoine Ducoin in the Cool Racing car. So sitting there waiting for the engine to restart, and it's amazing how quickly 4.6 kilometres just goes. It's a real uphill task now for the Greek liveried AF Corsa LMP3 car. So PZ Obeira, the TFT prepared Porsche, leading in GT3 from Rino Mastronardi, the lone Iron Lynx entry now that the number 9 sadly didn't start, and confirmation that Crichton Lendoudis is indeed running. He is side by side with the 12 machine, which is the Black Falcon entry for Donar Munding. But bear in mind, 31, not on the same racing lap as all of the cars around. So probably, well, if the marshals know that, the blue flags will be waved in Crichton's direction. Otherwise, he'll probably be getting messages from race control fairly shortly. Get out of the way. The danger is you're going to start to create this gap for everybody else.
Well, behind him, bottled up, is the Rinaldi Racing car. And behind him, the 23 car, John Schaumann. So it's Alexander Matschel and John Schaumann are the first cars in that train. Matschel goes through. John Schaumann is the next to try to get through to Donker in the Motorsport 98. Then the CD Sport car. Watch Rana Mateki in that car later, because he was impressive in Asia earlier this year. Another find for one of these teams.
Again, someone in his teens, 18 from France, done some Carrera Cup France racing in the Porsche world, but as you said, CD Sport for Asia Le Mans at the start of the year, so knows the team, but rather knows the car. CD Sport choosing Michael Jensen as its starting driver in the 33 machine. And Virage, Team Virage, with that local tie, going okay at the moment, 5th and 8th. Thought they'll be chuffed with that, with their two bronze drivers. Rob Hodes looks to have really improved over the winter period, and the same goes for Julien Gerby, who did the final race last year at Portimao, I seem to recall. And again, that was with an eye to maybe getting fully involved through the whole of this season.
So keeping a weather eye on that WTM car, up into the top 20 now. We'll watch his progress as he leapfrogs back up the order, but it's going to get tougher, of course.
Gap about a second between the two youngsters at the sharp end, between Cool Racing and Phoenix Racing.
But they are pulling away from the train behind, which is headed by Maurice Smith. 5 seconds to the good. No, in the third place, number 69 car. And Maurice has his mirrors full of Mikey Benham in the RLR M Sports 15 car. Rob Hodes is less than a second back, so that's a 1-2. That's a 3-car battle for third place.
Very good middle sector time from Donar Munding as well, the Black Falcon talent. He's even faster than Ducoin, and Gare sits at the head of the order, so won't be surprised to see Munding steadily improving his position for Black Falcon. That car is currently in 11th place, car number 12, and ahead of Rinaldi Racing's Alexander Matschel. You've got John Schaumann next, Eric de Donker for Motorsport 98, who has been close to a race win for last year. Chance maybe of going one better in season 2021, and the Motorsport 98 car got actually very close to being involved in not the spin for Crichton Lendoudis. I thought that was a replay of what had happened at turn 10 a few laps ago, but it was actually a pincer movement on Eric de Donker's Motorsport 98 car from left to right. He did very well to anchor up there and avoid.
De Donker clear of Crichton Lendoudis now. There's a pass behind as up the inside of the United Autosports car.
That's Torsten Kratz.
That's Jerry Kratz being taken by Torsten Kratz. Yes. Jerry Kratz, experienced gentleman driver in LMP3 from the IMSA Motor Club Challenge, was due to be in the Michelin Le Mans Cup last year, but worked out of that with the travel difficulties as we've got to move in GT, Johnny.
Yeah, 10Q Racing Team, the Wim Spinoy started Mercedes. Kenneth Hire still to come in that car, but third position for that Mercedes, and as you say, really going hammer and tong with the blue and white Ferrari of Ken Abe, Japanese. Down towards turn 5 go a bit later on the lap, in fact, turn 7 and 8. That awkward exit of that corner with the right-hand king that then leads this crucial right-hander, where a little bit earlier on today in the Michelin Endurance Series, Jacques Nicolet had a moment when he was leading the race. It's very easy indeed to lose the car there, despite all of the downforce that these cars carry. Torsten Kratz trying to get his elbows out. They thought about 3 abreast into turn 10, which is never ideal.
He's lost the place again.
He has to Jerry Kraut.
But this is Kratz not making it easy for the traffic to get by him. This is going to be frustrating for the cars behind. Joining us a bit late, the white and blue car is a lap down after a spin early on. Looking up towards the head of the field. Just noting, by the way, that our Black Falcon pal, done on Monday, did indeed set the fastest lap of the race there. It's 1:43.317 now. He is in 11th place, right on the rear end of the number 18 Milner Motorsport car, Matthias Lerton. The 2 leaders still within a second of each other, as up the inside goes the CD Sport car. A bit edgy. 7 seconds to go now from Maurice Smith, who's pulling away a little from Mikey Benham, who still had his mirrors full of Rob Hodes, with Jack Wolf, Tony Wells and Julian Jerby all in a train behind. It is hectic stuff.
So that was Michael Jensen in the CD Sport liveried car, getting the better of Crichton Lendudis, not for position, but just putting the blue and white car behind, and safely behind, because clearly Lendudis not quite carrying the speed of the cars that are doing the chasing right now. So you've got the 22 of Jerry Kraut also in that queue. Torsten Kratz recovering after his first corner spin. Mark Crader for Grain Market Racing is also present, along with Patrice Lafargue.
They're having a great battle, actually, albeit bottled up behind Lendudis. It is allowing the 3 or 4 cars behind to have really quite a scrap. They've got to try to make their way through the traffic, but there's positions to be gained here as well. And it's getting 2 or 3 of these guys to the point where they can see the opportunity maybe to take 1, 2, 3 places here.
Yes, and possibly all in one fell swoop as well, if you time it right. Antoine Duclin and Finn Gersit still exchanging fastest lap times. Duclin seems to just about have the advantage. It's a slim one, I'll admit, but Finn Gersit's at 16 years old, sticking with the race leader from Cool Racing, but Phoenix Racing doing the chasing. Then there's a 6.7-second gap back to Maurice Smith, who is hanging on for dear life to the coattails of the 2 ahead of him. It'll be similar setups for the 2 Cool Racing cars, so 69 won't be that far off the 37, with the 5 sitting in between the 2 of them. Mikey Benham for RLRM Sport, car 15 is 4th, ahead of Rob Hodes, the first of the 2 Team Virage entries, and then Jacques Wolf with a new team this year, Racing Spirit of Le Mans, car number 25 running in 6th position. And in GT3, it is still that dice between Nicky Leutwiler and Rino Mastronardi that continues to be fascinating. There's only a third of a second between the 2 of them.
Yeah, again, the number 11 car has got by the United Autosports car, trying again to get by Crichton Lendudis. Still not making this easy. I don't think this is going to be proving a very amusing part of the weekend so far for the Phoenix, the WTM powered by Phoenix man. Here is the lead battle in GT. Nose to tail, as you quite rightly described, Johnny, and they're about to get stuck in to that same battle ahead, with Crichton Lendudis somewhat the cork in the bottle. Now through goes the Duquesne. The number 11 car free and clear, but that's cost him 4.5 seconds to the next car up the road.
Down to turn 10 go the battling GT cars. Really not still much between the Porsche and the Ferrari, with Wim Spinoy much further adrift. There's actually 5 LMP3 cars between the second placed Iron Lynx Ferrari and the next GT car. Wim Spinoy got about 12 seconds to try and find before he's challenging Auden Gudmundsson in the Icelandic prepared Team Thor Ligier, car 77. Crichton Lendudis still continuing to try and recover.
Yeah, still on the pace, by the way, 10th quickest, but with that fastest lap and another lap in the 43s from Donald Munding, and is rapidly getting on to terms with a group of cars ahead of him. There's battle here between the number 16 and the number 7. That is Julian Jerby with Tony Wells. 2 of these Team Virage cars in this checkerboard livery. A bit of a wiggle there out of the turn. the better placed car. Rob Hodes, it was having a bit of a moment. But about to see our lead battle in GT meet the train that is still behind our number 31 car. Trouble for 32, and that's been in the wall.
Yes, it has, on the exit of 7 and 8, I think, and gone in heavily backwards. Daniel Schneider with Andy Merrick due to take that car over. Well, he won't get a drive today, I'm fairly faithful in saying. And the 32, although steering still works, well, will it be able to power away from there? The back end looks a complete mess.
I think that is effectively a silhouette of the car on the wall. I think that's taken a big, heavy sideways shunt. Now, he's going to be very lucky if that's not done some damage to the drivetrain.
That's the problem, is that all the important bits like gearbox and drivetrain are all that end of the car. The engine is right behind the driver, so at a reasonably safe distance from the concrete wall. But it looks to me that it's come out of 7 and then rotated through 8 and gone backwards into the wall with Daniel Schneider, quite possibly a passenger, through all of that. Don't know whether there was any contact, but the yellow flags are confirmed at turn 7. They've been withdrawn now. Does that suggest that Daniel's been able to drive away?
It does, rather.
It'll be straight to the pits, no doubt about it. Now, they build these cars very strongly indeed, but that's amazing if it's been able to drive away the number 32 Ligier for United Autosport's Daniel Schneider. Well, it'll certainly need a new rear deck and a few other bits too.
It's missing its rear legality panel as well. Let's watch this move here. This is Black Falcon.
12 car on the inside, Tony Wells in the 7 on the outside, and Tony couldn't hold Donar Munding back. Donar proving to be one of the fastest cars in this opening stint.
He's making increasingly rapid progress up the order.
Amazing.
You can see the damage to the right rear here, and it's reasonably extensive. That's going to need, as you say, new rear deck.
Yeah.
Probably the rear floor on this car as well. And let's wait and see whether or not there's any further damage in that right rear corner.
But your point about the legality panel, that cheese wedge shaped bit of carbon,
replaced.
Yeah, it's got to be stuck back on, and of course its locating points are no longer there.
What about the rear wing?
But the rear wing, does that come off with the rear deck on one of these LMP3s?
No.
So that's a separate unit. There is well, I was about to say a sense of a hurry down there, but I think they've now assessed the damage on the United Autosports car, and they will work to get the car back into the race, but it's not a mad rush because there are a number of components that they will have to source and then put on the car. So it's going to be at least a sort of 15-minute job, you would think.
At this point, it becomes a question of, one, is it safe, and two, what kind of time are we going to be able to give our customers to get back out onto track for effectively what becomes extended testing?
Well, the incident involving that car, and intriguingly no other car at turn 7, is now under investigation, but the fact that there's not another car number involved suggests it was all on Daniel's own.
Well, there's not another car named yet.
Is a good point. Yes, it involves car 32.
Yes.
What it doesn't say is no other car was involved, I suppose, to the strict letter of the law.
Rear wing is certainly bent, and bent fairly badly, but it's not as the maker intended.
Indeed. Lovely paint work and paint job otherwise.
Red paint. It's
that's the reason why.
That's exactly right. It's
Jim's car.
It was an extraordinary thing when that first hit the paddock, by the way. You could pick the teams that had that preparation, Cool Racing with the other, and immediately it just looked better.
Yeah.
And there's a heck of a story there about getting that into major OEM car production as well as race car production one by one. Back to racing though, and this is our friend from Black Falcon, still making his way up the order, 8th now, but now on the back of Jacques Wolf in the Racing Spirit of Le Mans. This is the 25 car with the 12 car. It looks like the young man in the 12 car just took time to get everything up to heat and to speed, and has now decided, it goes that quickly. And he's certainly on the kind of pace that we've got from the leading pair.
Donar will have been, let's just have a look at the driver combination. He won't have been on qualifying duty. That going the way of Mike Rosenberg in the Black Falcon car. So Mike qualifies, Donar the silver takes over and has had to come from 18th position on the grid. So far the progress is 10 places to 8th, and the next car that stands in his way is Jacques Wolf for Racing Sport of Le Mans. But yes, Munding certainly making his presence felt, and for a battle that involves he and Antoine Duquin and Finn Gersitz moving forward. Might be a bit too much of an ask at this stage, but one car at a time for Donar, and he is, well, on the inside initially, now to the outside, round turn 5, and he's found the grip. Brilliant overtake. There's another car in the wall.
That's the DKR car, I think.
And that's the 3, is it? Still car number 3? Yeah, John Brownson, I reckon that will be, in the orange and black.
I don't think that's made very heavy contact with the wall, but he's stuck in the gravel.
Yes.
So he's going to need assistance to get out of that.
Well, I look, possibly the legality panel on the rear right has gone.
But I think
But the bigger issue is he's in the gravel stones, and there's just, even though the rear wheels are spinning, he is going nowhere. And the yellow flags at turn 12 are out initially. But
safety car. Now that's
I was going to say at least a full course yellow.
That is very good news for everybody other than the top 2 in this race.
True, because the 8.4 second gap goes completely for a Burton now, disappears in the blink of an eye, and Maurice Smith's going to be on the boot lid of Gersitz at the restart.
Now this has been something we've seen as a feature of Michelin Le Mans Cup racing since the LMP3 era started, which is those teams that opt to put their quicker driver in first. It is a gamble, without a shadow of a doubt, and that gamble right now appears not to have paid off. Spare a thought, by the way, for the DCAR engineering team, 4 times winners of the title in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and it looks as if they've got off to a poor start here.
I know what you're saying about the quicker drivers, but they are still the bronzes. Antoine and Finn are the bronzes in the combination. So
let's see, shall we?
Yeah, I hear you. The fact that they were talking about a 17 and a 16-year-old who really haven't done enough racing to be anything higher than a bronze, but they have, make no mistake about it, the potential to be a gold in years to come. So.
And it may well be the mark of the inexperience of these drivers that I don't think I've more than maybe once ever seen a race director's instruction on a timing screen lead it to slow down.
That should be obvious as far as the safety car is concerned, but the safety car, I don't think it's picked up the right car, has it?
That is the right car.
Oh, it is the right car, okay, good. I was thrown by the paintwork on the second place machine, which is the Phoenix 5 car, which looks very similar from a distance of actually the paint scheme for number 73, the TS Corsa machine of Pietro Peccianini. But Antoine Duquin has been picked up by the safety car along with Finn Gersitz.
We've also got a pit stopper, that is the number 16 car, the Team Virage car.
Jerby.
Now that is not in the window.
Well, it has to be done before the hour mark. I haven't seen anything in the regulations that says
fair enough. No, you know what? Yeah, I think you might be right.
There has been a tweak to the regulation.
As if it's the year before. I do apologise.
Yeah,
but he's still got to do his driver hours.
It's a very good point, and I think that still stands at 50 minutes. So you could potentially do a driver change here. What you can't do is another driver change in the second pit stop. He would have
to have a third pit stop to do that.
Yes,
and we have seen that done. In a instant, I think we had a weather-interrupted race or weather-affected race where there was all sorts of hijinks. I think that was last year, where all sorts of things were coming into play.
See, what you can do is the 130-second pit stop during the safety car. There's nothing in the regs that says that's not permitted. So do that stop now without the driver change. Do a driver change after the 50 minutes as quick as you like, and then do another stop in the final 20 minutes. Is another way to cut the cake.
Your gap is too big.
Yeah, safety car lights are out, but that's because they appear to be broken.
Right.
Meantime,
we are doing a recovery with pickup at T12. Be advised, we're doing a recovery at T12.
And the speed, he was saying, Eduardo, that I think of Antoine Duquin was too fast, but in fairness to Antoine, he was going the same speed as the safety car.
He was calling the 93 to speed up, I think. I think he said 93.
Beg your pardon, I was talking at the time, so it was
I
tricky
suspect
to listen
he meant the 73, there was too big a gap. The other thing I think I saw as we saw the Team Virage car leaving the pits, I'm pretty certain I saw the 32 heading behind the wall or into the paddock.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The
heavily damaged Daniel Schneider United Autosport car, which means Andy Merrick won't get to drive today. A frustrating end to his season last year, and now a difficult start.
And remember, those saying put it in the garage, get it fixed. You can't, because it's not his garage. It might be the United Autosport's garage, but you're not allowed to put the cars into the garage there. That is not. It would clearly be an unfair advantage to those teams that have got teams in both the LMS and Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Also, there's not, when you've got ELMS race cars parked up in there, there's really not a lot of space to suddenly welcome a Michelin Le Mans Cup entrant for hasty repair work.
So back to it could be they're going to repair it. It's gone back under its own power. We may see it back out for a few laps. Happily, the number 3 car, and you're right, it did brush the Galaxy panel, which is still hanging on by a veritable thread.
As they so often are, because of course they carry the tail light on these cars, and that has to be powered by something. So very often the electricity cable is the thing that keeps that thing attached. They're known as bullets in the trade if you're ordering some for a DKR Engineering Duquesne, for instance.
Which they will be very soon.
I think so. But the task now is to try and work out how to attach that on the fly. It doesn't work with tape. So you have to work out a way that it will stay on the car, because it needs to be present, not only because it carries that rear tail light, but also other technical reasons as well. I mean, it is a legality panel, therefore legally it needs to be there.
Other pit stoppers, as you can see, the Rinaldi racing car, this is Steve Barrow, aboard the number 55 car, also in Jerry Kraut in the 22 car for United Autosports, and the second Virage car, the 71 car, is also on pit lane. Well,
a short drive really for John Brownson from where he'd come to rest in the gravel trap, and a very dusty looking DKR Engineering Duquesne arrives on the scene.
Patina, I call it.
Again, with DKR working in a satellite mode in front of quite possibly their garage. But as you say, you're not allowed to use anything within that garage, particularly not the space, in order to repair the car. So it will all need to be done on the working area in the pit lane apron. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and what was 5 cars in the pit lane. The Rob Hodes driven Team Virage number 71 has rejoined, incidentally. And now, what did we say it was? 130 seconds, which is 2 minutes and 10.
It is.
So a number of cars are doing 2-minute 10-second stops. Get those out of the way. I don't think anybody has changed their driver, though, crucially. Rob Hodes stays at the wheel of the 71. Steve Parrow, likewise, in 55 for Rinaldi Racing. Jerry Kraut for United Autosports, still driving the 22 car. And Crichton Lentudis, a lap down. We've spoken quite a bit about the Greek, and generally for the wrong reasons, because of that spin down at turn 10, which took him off the lead lap. But they've got one of their long stops out of the way. They'll have to make a pit stop again somewhere between the 50 and the 60-minute marker to do the driver change, and then another 130-second stop towards the end of the race in the last 20 minutes to tick off that second mandatory stop. It might pay dividends, this. It just depends how the rest of the race pans out.
It does. So this is a throw of the dice, really, and as you can see here, the process of removing and replacing one of those bullets, those legality panels at the rear of the car, not the work of a moment. It's indeed several moments that's going to take, and they're also now looking to see whether or not there's any kind of damage at the oily end of the car. Don't think they made particularly large contact, but maybe the driver is reporting he just lost the rear end.
Yeah, quite possibly so.
He might want to have said it felt like there was something on the tyres and the rear end went.
Yes,
that's
no
got the look of that, hasn't it?
Yeah, and needing that to be explained to the team. So definitely some head scratching going on down there. Was it cause and effect? Which way round did those things happen?
Good opportunity, by the way, to look at what the rear end of an LMP3 car looks like when unclothed.
They are striking pieces of kit, whether they be the Ligier, the Duquesne, or indeed the Ades, which is new
safety
for 2021.
Car lights out, safety car lights out, safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. Safety car is coming in at the end of this lap.
The Ades, a new addition to the championship, although it was available as a car to enter into the Michelin Le Mans Cup in 2020 as well. The new batch of cars released at the start of last year.
Well, there's been an Ades available since the thing started, since 2016, but the Evo version of its first time here, and into the top 20 for that car.
There we are.
With the issues for others ahead of it, they'll be delighted with that.
So Simon Escalier doing the opening stint for Ross Brit's competition, to give it its full name, and Cedric Chapon, fellow Frenchman, to take charge of the 03 Evo once we get to the pit stop window for driver changes. So 4 cars have already made use of the safety car and a chance to do a 2-minute and 10-second stop. They've all managed to get that time in, by the way. It looks like Rinaldi Racing with the closest run there, bang on the money with 2 minutes and 10. Others taking it relatively gingerly with a 2:12 from Rob Hodes and from Jerry Kraut. Meanwhile, Antoine Ducat and Finn Gersitz, 0.6 of a second separate the top two. Maurice Smith, a second chance to try and stay with these young drivers up front, but the gap's already growing to nearly 2 seconds.
But that has helped the campaign, hasn't it? Before we get the replacement driver in around the top of the hour. It's reduced the damage, if you like. And what are we looking at now in terms of our friend from Black Falcon? Up into 5th place now, Dynamunding, and just 3.7 seconds off the lead. And that's the crucial thing. If he's now got that pace and can get by the couple of cars ahead of him, he's looking very racy indeed here at the back end of Mikey Benham. Then this could get very interesting up front.
Already 30 minutes gone, a quarter of the race completed, and we certainly know that Cool Racing and Phoenix Racing are in with a shout of a very good result, judging by the pace set in the early stages. And I'm talking about both Cool Racing cars. Actually, both Phoenix Racing cars had a shout before the WTM powered by Phoenix car had that spin at the first corner, and the number 11 car now trying to recover as best it can. Torsten Kratz has got to 14th position, with Michael Jensen, the next car, up ahead of it, the CD Sport colours. Eric de Donker for Motorsport 98 is in 12th place for car number 98, and Erwin Creed just outside the top 10. How about this for an intense fight in GT3 though, because Rino Mastronardi very nearly fashioning an inside line there through the final corner and across the main straight. Nicky Leutwiler though, full on defensive mode, amazingly keeps Mastronardi behind for the time being.
And behind, the latest car to pass Quentin Dunis is the TS Corsa car. It's the 73 Duquesne. It's a car in 19th position.
So Nicky Leutwiler not wanting to be entirely distracted by the advances of the Iron Lynx car behind, but the danger is, this is a very good run this time on the Italian, for the Italian on the Swiss, and he does get the move done finally. Well, he'd been hammering on the door for the last couple of laps, Rino Mastronardi, off the back of a splendid year in 2020 when he was the lone champion at GT3 level, securing an automatic invitation for Iron Lynx to this year's 24 Hours of Le Mans, and that is the level of prize that we are competing for at GT level in the Michelin Le Mans Cup once again this season.
I can offer a guess that the Rinaldi Racing team had a driver change, but have not yet changed the driver indicator.
Okay.
Because that car on its first flying lap has taken the fastest lap of the race, albeit on new rubber, 1:42.979, and again quicker in sector 1. Car down in 26th position after that early pit stop. Is that Steve Parrow?
Well, it does smack of Dominic Schwager rather than Steve Parrow, I have to admit, but that does rather complicate what they have to do for the rest of the race, because it would involve getting Steve back in the car at some point.
Yep.
And what you can't do is use the pit stop that must be done in the last 20 minutes as an excuse for a driver change, because it says so in the regs.
So all of those of us that were expecting the clear young talent that is in the number 12 Black Falcon car to breeze past Mikey Benham have clearly misunderstood the psyche of a man with children.
Yes, what an ability to deal with several things all at once, and also monitor your anger levels, channel your aggression, quite possibly. All the above apply. And yeah, so far so good for Mikey Benham. He will know he's in a race though, and Dynamunding trying to pressurise from every angle here from that 5th place Black Falcon car.
He will be loving this, loving it. This is why Mikey Benham does it. He wants the fight, he wants to show that he can take the fight to professional drivers. That's the appeal for him, doing double duty, as we said earlier in the show, Johnny, with an ELMS campaign as well as this with RRM Sports. Great to have him back. It's real fighting spirit.
Very much so. And remember that the last time that Lannon Racing competed with Mikey Benham in the Le Mans Cup, that was 2019, and they took 3 wins that year, did he and Duncan Tappy. The opener at Paul Ricard, Monza, which was the very next round, and they won the event at Spa as well. So came really, really close to taking the title in 2019. But there is the change. Dona Munding under-braking into the left and right, I should say, at turn 14 and 15. Awkward chicane, but Munding got it spot on right, and Benham, I don't think was going to force that issue necessarily. So the change is made, and Black Falcon move up to 4th position.
And that indeed was the 1 to 4 order on the start-finish straight. 7.7 seconds is the gap, 1 to 4, first to 4th in the order here. There's the 66 Rinaldi car, the green car with the now red dorsal fin. With, oddly enough, I think that is Simgrid, and I think that is David Perel's company.
Yes, okay.
And, a man who's raced both in the LMS and the Le Mans Cup. He's back in the LMS this season with a new team, the Spirit of Race.
There are very often several connections between drivers and teams up and down the order, with a number of drivers in this race that have probably raced for various teams through the course of their Michelin Le Mans Cup career. There are those drivers that tend to stick to teams that they are familiar with, but others that prefer to chop and change a bit, as the Wochenspiegel team Monschau, prepared by or powered by Phoenix Racing entry, is now shadowing the Motorsport 98 car of Eric de Doncker. So Torsten Kratz in a Duquesne versus Eric de Donker's Ligier, then John Schaumann just a bit further up the road in the United Autosports car number 23, and they're all ultimately trying to get into the top 10. Erwin Creed stands in their way.
Very rapidly, Dona Munding is up with Maurice Smith, has closed that gap rapidly. It's going to be the 3 young guns, 1, 2, 3, pretty quickly. The very bearded Maurice Smith, race winner last season with Matt Bell at the second race, wasn't it, at Le Castellet?
Yes, 3rd round of the season, 2nd visit to Paul Ricard, you're quite right.
Getting ready for the driver change down at Black Falcon. There's Rosenberg.
So this is the 3rd season for American driver Maurice Smith, but I don't think he did all of the races in 2019 actually. No, he did actually, one far off. Yeah, competed in all 7, beg your pardon. So the 74 car, that was the early stages of his career, and he's since been involved with Cool Racing and Matt Bell. The damaged DKR engineering car reaches the pits, or continues to be repaired in the pits rather.
You're looking for a driver to point to show what race practice and experience in this kind of field a difference can make. Look no further than Maurice Smith. Now, legitimately a podium contender race after race, with the fantastic assistance of driver, coach and co-driver Matt Bell for several years.
Now it's turned into a great partnership, that, and they are desperate to win the title if possible. The tricky thing is there are 25 other cars out there also trying to do the same thing.
But he's giving Matt Bell a really good shot at this with this performance. Still holding the Black Falcon car behind. And of course every single lap takes them closer to the point where that driver change comes. But this is a very good drive indeed from Maurice Smith. Mikey Benham just behind. He's not dropped too far off this battle.
Yeah, Maurice realising that the top 2 to an extent have gone, but if he can hang on to 3rd position, that provides a brilliant platform then for his teammate Matt Bell to build and potentially break into the top 2 if at all possible. But I think Podium, if he can stay in 3rd, very much in the offing, and it will have meant that he will have soaked up so much pressure from Dona Munding.
Yep.
Maybe 11 minutes or so, depending on how quickly they want to get that 69 car in for the driver change. But if he can keep the 12 car behind for the next 4 or 5 laps, then that'll be job done as far as the American is concerned.
And one of the things, by the way, Maurice Smith will have learned in those years in LMP3 racing in the Michelin Le Mans Cup is just not to take any notice at all of anybody flashing the lights behind him.
He might need to notice
That's
this time,
a great
though.
move.
Yeah,
That's a great move.
From the inside of turn 4 and then turning that into the inside line for turn 5. He threw Maurice Smith, the dummy did Dona Munding, made it look like he was going to go to the outside, and at the last minute muscled the car from right to left, and that really was a stonking manoeuvre. I think even Maurice Smith will hold his hands up and say, I was done there. There wasn't anything I could do about it, and the change is made. 3rd position now in the hands of Dona Munding.
Yeah, whatever the American version of "he done me like a kipper" is, he would have been saying that.
Yeah.
Mikey Benham, by the way, right with him now. You see again up the inside. You're absolutely spot on, Johnny. Sold him a beautiful dummy. Maurice will be kicking himself slightly, won't he?
Yeah, but it's always easy to be wise after the event, and you got the feeling that Munding may have even tried around the outside and possibly got a result from that as well. He sort of had both areas covered, and just down to actually getting Morris slightly off rhythm through turn 3, as far back as 3 when you consider the overtake was done at turn 5. So plenty more of that we hope for the rest of the season, definitely. Antoine Ducas, Finn Gersitz, Donna Munding is the current top 3.
And freed from that battle, immediately puts in a purple sector in sector 3. So the gap from first to third, 9.4 seconds at the end of that lap. With about, well, something around the 20-minute mark before the driver changes will be completed. Let's just see what the young man can do about the other, frankly, equally young men ahead of him.
A reminder of drivers still to come. In the race-leading 37 Cool Racing machine will be Josh Skelton, fresh from 3 seasons in the UK racing single-seaters. Finn Gersitz in the number 5 Phoenix Racing car will be handing over to Hamza Ovega, fellow German pilot, and Donna Munding is the silver in that combination, remember, so qualifying driver Mike Rosenberg due to take over the Black Falcon 12 Ligier.
Confirmed, by the way, the changes come that it is indeed Dominic Schwager aboard the number 55 Rinaldi racing car, that pace.
Yeah,
simply to tell that story. That's with absolutely no slight intended to Steve Parrow, but to come out and immediately put the fastest lap of the race on the car, that tells a tale. It doesn't look to me as if that DKR car is going anywhere fast.
No, still being worked on and out of obviously the race for the time being. It is a long race with still an hour and 18 and a bit minutes still to go, and they're working hard at it, more so than United are currently, as the 55 of Dominic Schwager pulling off a good move on 2 cars actually. The first of them was the first of a couple of Team Virage machines, and the second being the Team Thor entry from Iceland of Odin Gudmundsson. So that would have been Rob Hodes, I think, that also Schwager was overtaking in the same move down at turn number 1, Graham.
Excellent stuff. Dominic Schwager making progress up the order. Remains to be seen whether or not that tactic that we saw from those 3 or 4 teams to come in early, burn that long stop under a safety car, can that pay off? They're going to need some help, aren't they, from either the weather gods, which looks unlikely, or another full course caution.
I'd say any of the wet stuff looked unlikely by sunset yesterday, and then nightfall arrived and it absolutely hammered down for about an hour, which I think was on the forecast. And looking ahead to this evening, nothing like that. A little bit of cloud, but it shouldn't be weather bearing. So yeah, you're going to be looking for other ways to win this race without any intervention from the skies.
Into the 142s for Donna Munding, as opposed to the 43, high 43s and the low 44s for the 2 cars ahead. The gap now, first to third, down to 8 seconds.
So Rino Mastronardi, Nicky Leutwiler for Iron Lynx and PZ Obera. Yes, despite Leutwiler holding up a stout defence initially, Rino Mastronardi, as some of us suspected actually after that performance last year, the 33 CD Sport car has rotated on its own. And I think that's a similar situation as to what happened with the United Autosports car after that slapped the barrier.
Yep. There's a big instant there for the 21 car.
Erwin Creed, who was in 10th position, nose entirely removed from that car, which just steers
that's a big accident
with no warning whatsoever. Was there some nose-to-tail contact maybe coming out of turn 9? Delighted to see Erwin Creed clambering out of that car under his own steam, and I think it's his own mistake, the way that he suddenly just outburst of frustration. Cannot believe that he's made that error coming out of 9, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, watch this again, came off the curb, it did go straight in. Oh, brushed the rear as well.
Yeah.
But big impact to the front. Excellent to see Erwin managing to get out that car. Erwin Creed managed raced up to and including LMP2 in the WEC, of course. Parfumier.
Yeah, and this is his 4th season in Michelin Le Mans Cup, so vastly experienced. He knows the error that he has made, and that beautifully turned out all black Moulin Motorsport car now unfortunately looking very, very sorry for itself. And if you make a mistake coming out of turn 9 there, the fast right-hander, there really isn't much space left or right to adjust your line. You're pretty much a passenger, as Irwin was, heading straight towards the tyre wall.
Brand new car as well this year.
Oh dear, okay.
Into the pits. This is the car we just saw have that quick spin. Number 33 car. So this is going to chuck all sorts of things into the mix, isn't it?
Still not quite far enough into the race to entertain a driver change, but if it lasts for a bit more than 5 minutes,
I
be a
think
different story.
This could be a couple of laps beyond the safety car here. There's a lot of debris.
Yes, and messages on the screen already telling everybody, be cautious on the exit of turn 9, because I think the whole of the two light pods either side of the nose were just churned up into the air after the impact. It's also then gone in backwards to cause more damage. Josh Skelton raring himself to go to take over from the race leader Antoine Duquin, and a penny for the 20-year-old's thoughts now as he is about to enter prototype racing for the first time in his fledgling motorsport career. Pressure is on, and obviously everybody gearing themselves up for a driver change. You can do that in the next 4 and a bit minutes.
Indeed. So I think that's going to fall under the safety car.
Yeah,
that's going to take a quick lift here. It's a concrete barrier, which is...
Has he hit a concrete? I struggled to tell, actually.
No, it looked like concrete to me. That's bad news for the driver that hit it, although it's delightful to see him stepping out the car. Good news for clearing it up quickly, aside from the debris that's spread across the track, the infield and the outfield.
Yeah. Good news as in the tyre wall doesn't need to be rebuilt, it's just hit hard concrete.
So already
stands up
25 and 23, that is Jacques Wolf in the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car. That's the car we're looking at there. Also in is John Schaumann in the number 23 United Autosports car. CD Sport back out into the race, but will need another driver change. Too early.
Yes, I think. Now, if a few teams decide to go with this driver change, then we really have had a major revision.
There's the Odessa.
Here's the Odessa arriving on pit road.
It does give you the opportunity, if they do open the door, to see one of the unique features of this car. It's got gull-wing doors.
Nice. Okay.
It was actually one of the weaknesses in the early cars. They did have a tendency to blow off at high speeds, but that's been fixed. It looks pretty well prepped here. It's good to see Stefan Chausset, the man behind the Odessa chassis. Here,
another angle of Irwin Creed, who caught the curb, went beyond the curb, then tried to muscle the car. Yeah, grounded out.
Something broke underneath the car as well. It was grounding heavily. There was certainly debris already being spat out of the rear of the car with whatever it was grounding on. He knew immediately he was in trouble there.
Yeah. And the problem is you can see the accident coming way before the car actually hits, and that's the worst, is having time to think about how hard is this going to be. But it was good to see him clamber out. Now he'll be taken to the medical centre purely because nasty things like concussion can take a while to hit, if there is anything to be worried about in that regard. But he's in the best possible hands now. Indeed. The RACC, the Royal Automobile Club of Catalunya, are experts in their field. And this place, Barcelona circuit, does have an on-site medical centre. So any news we get on Irwin Creed, we'll bring that to you. But encouraging signs that he was able to extract himself.
As you quite rightly said in qualifying earlier, with the exception of Le Mans, all Class 1 circuits for the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series. Part of the appeal for the gentleman drivers is we go to such fantastic places. And there goes the remains of the 21 car. Sad to see. But the happiest news is that Irwin Creed got out under his own steam. You can see the result, the impact. The crash box has taken the impact well.
Yeah. I've dug out the sporting regulations for season 2021 just because I'm starting to doubt myself that there may have been changes. If you're in GT, your minimum drive time for either driver, regardless of grading, is 55 minutes. So we'll actually see the GT cars in slightly later than the LMP3s, and we were right, it is 50 minutes.
Well,
so
we're not there yet.
We're not at 50 minutes.
No.
And the minimum drive time for a driver, in the case of 2 mandatory pit stops, which is what we have today, definitely 5-0 minutes. So
Right.
those choosing to change drivers will have to put driver A back in again.
Right, well, here's the thing. Everybody has burned one long stop.
Yes.
So nobody's changed a driver in a short stop. They've all burned one of those 2 minutes and 10 second stops, and there's one of them at least bang on the money. So there's one more 130-second stop where they can't change a driver. So what they have to do now is to come in and probably only do a driver change.
Yeah.
So
And
they'll be
hope-
praying from any point now for another safety car period or
There's either a full course yellow or a safety car during it, yes. And it's the Rinaldi team.
There goes
Owen
Debris
Creed
out the
again.
back. Yeah.
And I think that's possibly some tyres that he's hit there. It just looked a bit deformed slightly, the wall. Unless it's a bit of the concrete giving way. You dread to think that that might be the case. It might have been just a bit of concrete dust, perhaps. Anyway, significant damage to the car. That will take no further part. Thinking about the cars that have done long stops, and there was at least one driver change, wasn't there, for Rinaldi, because it took a while to be corrected on the screen, but Steve Parrow got out and Dominic Schwager got in.
Now, anybody now that pits, that's not already pitted and changed a driver, now you've served your time. We're now into that window for LMP3.
Yes. And it'll be another 5 minutes and we will be into the window for GT3.
Correct.
Because GT3 drivers must do 55 minutes.
So I think pit lane's about to get very, very busy.
I think that's a fair assumption, Graham Goodwin, definitely. And so many teams raring to go. They will have spent much of this week rehearsing this crucial bit of their race. And this is where every single member of the team personnel can get involved in a potential good result and feel that they were actively taking part. It's all down to the next 10 minutes or so, and then the other stop is down to the fueler, pretty much, the man on the lollipop, man or woman on the lollipop, and whoever's putting the fuel in the car for the second mandatory stop to make sure that the fuel tank has enough juice in it to get these cars to the finish. But that will be dealt with 20 minutes of the race to go. Let's get this first stop, in some cases, out of the way. And certainly the top 10 haven't yet made any stops.
No, indeed.
That can extend to the top 11, in fact.
And of those, certainly, let's have a quick look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 11, 6 of the top 12, definitely. It is very firmly the gentleman driver still aboard the car.
Yep.
So at this point, the pendulum of fortune begins to swing their way. And just for the top 12, by the way, as they all come in.
They do, yeah. One after the other after the other.
Oh, good grief! Look at this.
And Julien Gerby stayed out because he's already made a long stop, so there's no immediate need to change that driver over. Rino Mastronardi's got a bit more time to go. So, amazingly, Rino Mastronardi, who leads the GT3 category, is now second overall because all of the cars ahead of him have made their stop on this lap.
So Julien Gerby goes through to lead. He has made one stop. So as you say, the leading pair in GT. A pit stop sequence that had the air of a NASCAR stop, didn't it, with them all coming in at once there, only with prettier cars. But 98 car, Eric de Donker. We'll pass the car over to Dino Lonardi. That car is berthed in the pit-in end outside the Team WRT garage. It's number 5.
Yeah, so that's the Phoenix Racing entry. In its fairly understated livery, but certainly doesn't lose any impact because of that, with the yellow day glow detailing on essentially a black background. Team Virage number 16 is the Julien Gerby car that now leads the motor race, and Julien still needs to hand over to Sasha
Safety
Lehmann.
car is coming in at the end of this lap.
Well, this is going to be interesting.
Right in the middle of the pit stop window. Well,
I hope there's room on the pit lane for it to come in.
That's another question, yes. Has it still got a parking place? Because so many other cars will have potentially taken it from the safety car team. Well, Eduardo Freitas and his crew have done all that they need to do. They've cleared the racetrack. It's now safe to race again. And it's all down to the teams working their strategy around the second safety car of this 2-hour race. It may not be the last time we see the Nissan either, that is currently leading the field and will dart to the pit lane exit. And all of a sudden I'm reminded of when the cars were first released at the start of this event. What did you compare it to? Zulu?
It was a bit like Zulu.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
But the previously leading pair have reversed order, and I think Team Virage have beat the lot. However, Team Virage have only done 1 minute and 38 seconds in that pit stop.
Yes.
But was Garrett Grist already in the car?
Garrett, I thought, started the race, but I will confirm that for you.
Looks a bit like the Motorsport 98 car may have been stalled in the pit lane.
So you're talking about because obviously we've got Julian Jerby leading in the number
No, we're talking
16
here about
car.
the number 71
other Team
car.
Virage car.
I think Rob Hoad started that car.
You're right, he did, yes. So Garrett's taken over. But Rob did a 2 minute and 10, stayed at the wheel. They've now done another stop to switch to drivers.
That's fine, because he's done his 2 minutes and 10.
Crazy restart, and remember we're now under green as well, so Garrett Grist having to get well and truly stuck in. He's also got for company the CD Sport car of Adam Ateki. We were looking forward to seeing how Adam gets on.
And the GT lead changes in all of that. So back up into the front goes the Porsche. So beautifully opportunistic move from Nicky Lertweiler all the way through that.
And these drivers, the GT drivers, haven't changed yet because we haven't reached 55 minutes. Well, we have now, and unsurprisingly, lots of investigations of cars exiting the pit lane under a red light. So
Which is probably why the 98 car was stopped at the end of pit lane. There was a red light.
So not only are the safety car procedures being looked into, but that whole wave of cars, which must have contained about 7 or 8 different LMP3s, have they all just missed the red light because they were focused on winning the race out of the pit?
Well, let's think about this. The safety car had just come in. The leading cars were right there.
Yeah.
As the race began to go green, so we had one LMP3 and 2 GT cars on pit straight. The red light would have been on.
Yes, it would. And with so many new drivers to cars entirely focused on winning that race off pit road, have they all looked in the wrong direction? And now the GT3s will head to pit road, and this is their scheduled pit stop because we're beyond the 55 minutes. And therefore PZ Obera, Zurich by TFT Porsche in first, ahead of the Reno Mastronardi Ferrari, and that was a real bit of heads-up driving from Nicky Lertweiler to take the lead back again in the GT category.
This question occurs to me here, depending on whether and if they get penalties, I mean the entire field, just how far up could one of these GT3 cars finish?
I know.
Because we've got to get the pro drivers aboard these cars. In comes the number 51 car, the, I think, stunning blue and white Ferrari. Really nice.
I mean, the first guy who's in the clear, for a fact, is Julian Jerby, because he wasn't in the pits. So he leads the race, and Jerby won't have jumped the red light. Motorsport 98, you are spot on, stops, and everybody else just drives around him, but through a red light, we think. Now, obviously we're looking at that from the other angle, can't see what the red light, what the light rather is displayed as, but why would the Motorsport 98 car stop?
At the point at which that light goes red, you stop.
You have to stop, yeah, because you are not permitted beyond the line. That is strictly stressed in the driver's briefing. And the others can argue, well, I couldn't see the red light because there was a stopped car in front of me. Well, anticipate why that car stopped and think, should I be doing the same?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a discussion to be had in race control. We can only call things as we see it. Team Virage lead the race with Julien Jerby. Should be in the clear as far as that red light infringement is concerned, because he wasn't even in the pits at the time. And I think the same goes for Dominic Schwager. It must do, because that Rinaldi racing car had switched its driver nice and early.
The one thing I would say is that Julien Jerby's car is off sequence, isn't it?
Well, it's done a long stop. It hasn't yet done a driver change.
So they need to stop in the next 8 minutes.
Yes, to make sure that the second driver into the 16 car, who is due to be Sasha Lehmann, gets the minimum drive of 50 minutes in. So yeah, next 8.5 minutes is really the scope for Julien Jerby, who's lost the race lead, I noticed. Dominic Schwager jumps ahead in car 55 for Rinaldi Racing. So remember, Dominic taking charge of that Steve Parrow started machine, and the Rinaldi Racing red and black is now your new race leader. This is how it happened. End of the main straight, very good run through the draft of Julien Jerby, who was really a sitting duck by the time they turned in at turn number 1. Great overtake from Dominic Schwager there.
This is a topsy-turvy race, isn't it? And it's got a lot more to play here. This is going to be story-filled for the next 61 minutes at the very least. Amazing stuff. The fastest lap of the race, meanwhile, goes to Adam Mateki in the CD Sport number 33 car, 1:42.420. He sits in 15th position.
Théo Chalal, by the way, has taken charge of the 25 Racing Spirit of Le Mans car, which was started by Jacques Wolf, and Racing Spirit of Le Mans, new team for 2021, up to third now, and the Adès is running fourth. Simon Escalier, and
but hasn't changed driver yet.
It hasn't changed driver, but that means it wasn't involved in the kerfuffle in the pit lane either.
It wasn't.
So a number of the cars that are actually behind it in the race stand the chance of incurring a penalty because of that, and that will help the Adès yet further.
Car 66 must prepare the light, it says at its next pit stop. Car 66.
Halfway distance reached, 60 minutes in the book. We are halfway through the GT3 driver change window, and I think they've all done that actually now. Yeah, the 4 GT3s, because we didn't have one car start the race, unfortunately, the Iron Lynx machine for Dorian Pain and for Sarah Bovey. But the other 4 cars have all made their stops.
The Adès stops now, by the way. That will be for, I'm sure that will be for the driver change, but that can be a quick stop, can't it?
Yes.
Wade Boyd, fastest lap of the race, he is in 12th, but here's the battle that was the lead battle until very recently. This is the 37 car, right on the rear of the Phoenix Racing car, now in the hands of Hamza Alwega in the 5, Josh Skelton flashing the lights in the 37, but this is now battle for 7th position with this weird sequence of...
It is weird, you're right, but I kind of like these races because they're so difficult to read, and you've got to stay on top of them as Josh Skelton is trying every which way to get by Hamza Vega. No way through just yet in the Phoenix Racing and Cool Racing Ligiers respectively. We've got a Duquesne leading the motor race, then 3 Ligiers, then the pit stopping Adès now of Simon Escalier, as we head to the pit lane for an update from Hayley Edmonds.
I'm down here in the pit lane, joined here by Donda Munding, driver of car number 12, the Black Falcon. Can you hear me? Okay, what a fantastic start you had. You started off 18th on the grid and you worked your way up to 3rd. Just tell us, what was working for you out there?
Well, at the start I was very cautious because I started 18th and it was pretty close in the first laps. But I felt pretty comfortable, and I felt that I had really good potential to really go up the grid, and I just gave everything I had, and I think the outcome is pretty good.
Just tell us about the track. You know, we know that Barcelona is very abrasive. Tell us about, the tyres and tyre management and how you prepared for it.
When you're right behind other cars, it's pretty difficult because you're really lacking grip. So I was really trying to overtake as aggressive as I could to really have some clean air and just do my laps in my rhythm. But yeah, it was really hard out there because when you go offline, for example, you have a lot of marbles and it takes quite a few laps to get rid of them. But I think I managed it pretty good, and I'm happy with how I made it.
And you should be. It's a fantastic start. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, most impressive from
Donna
Munding. Oh, the 37 is off. This is the former race leader, Josh Skelton, either tangling with the Phoenix car or he's gone off on his own. And where is this on the track? Turn 10. So it's the long run down. He's gone for a move as Josh, and I think run out of road.
He did.
Yeah, he did. There was
himself.
no contact, but he went up the inside. Big lock-up, and the Cumbrian rotates, and unfortunately for him, has dropped the rear Michelins into the stones, and he's probably given it one boot of right foot, and it's just buried it yet further. We're going to go safety car again, Graham.
Wow. Now this again, this could be a very telling moment. So let's just see how this one kind of pans out now. We are just about in the window where they can get home on the fuel, but just about in the window. So do you risk it and burn that second stop?
The second long stop.
The second long stop, you've got to fuel the car.
You have, but you can't do it until the last 20 minutes.
You're right.
Last 20 minutes is the only available time to do it.
Right.
So you're right. Ordinarily, this would have been a cracking time to do it, but not permitted to at this stage.
Meantime, by the way, there was a mini drama playing its way out, and we'll talk about that as we watch Josh Skelton, I'm afraid, sitting there motionless. in the 37 car for the Ades. The Ades pitted. As it pitted, the screens adjusted to say that the light that needed to be changed on the 60 actually should have read the 56. That message very clearly did not reach the team.
Right.
They were about to release the car, and they were then trying to interpret the hand signals from the ACO official on pit lane, losing more time, and at the same time up pops another message saying reported to the stewards for speeding in pit lane.
Oh no, okay.
So
it never rains, but it pours then for one particular team.
The 56's days gone to ashes. Yes.
Fourth place though, I mean you can't take that away from the Ades crew. They definitely ran fourth for a good few laps and then came in for the pit stop that needed to be done to switch Simon Escalier for Cedric Chaperon as Josh Skelton's car is about to be towed out of the gravel. It only needs to be winched forward a couple of inches, and the Michelins are back on hard standing, and Josh can be back in the race.
So it'll be a short safety car.
Yes.
No one in a position where they could take an advantage other than Team Virage.
Missing a tail light on that 37 Cool Racing car. The bullet is in place, but there's only one red light on one side. Okay. That might be okay. As long as the panel is in place, I think that's usually fine. The DKR engineering car still being repaired. We haven't seen this.
That car, did that car come back out?
Well, it did a 36-second stop, so that must have been a drive-through. So John Brownson now in for a driver change?
Yes, I'd have thought so.
Yeah. And that's okay as far as the new driver stepping in, who is due to be Dario Cangialosi.
Is it? Because we've got 54 minutes left.
54 left, and
he's
you only have to do
106. We have to do 55. No, it's 55 in a GT car.
55 in a GT car, 50 in an LMP3 is fine, as long as it's one of those races where you've got two mandatory stops to do, which this is. So Dario will, as long as he rejoins fairly swiftly, should get his full 50 minutes in.
Has just done so.
Good, good.
So in this topsy-turvy race,
it's good, isn't it? It certainly grabs your attention and
Dominic's Rager leads,
makes you concentrate. Yes, let's not overlook that.
Under the safety car, Josh Skelton back underway. Théo Chanal is second in the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car, which rather oddly is 22 seconds back. Not quite sure why you're looking for an overtake there. This safety car.
There's a wave by, I think, taking place now.
Shouldn't be when you're not in not in these conditions. Should be a wave by if it's happening. Would happen with the train, not in free running traffic.
Well, the 55 is ahead of the safety car, and I think that's what's driving this wedge between the race leader and everybody else who's bottled up behind the safety car. Anyway, let's go and grab a word with Finn Gersitz now with Hayley Edmonds.
Yes, I'm joined by another young gun. In fact, the youngest one of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. It's Finn Gersitz. He's 16 years old, and what a fantastic start you had out there. What a great start. Just tell us about how it went for you.
Yeah, I'm really happy for this good first stint. Also, the qualifying was quite good. Just landed on second position with a small gap to the leader. But now also the first race on me, it felt very good and very comfortable with the car also.
Just tell us about, the fact there's a multi-class event. It's a multi-class event. I mean, how are you managing that? What are the difficulties that you're being confronted with? Is there any challenges out there for you?
Could you please repeat the question, because the cars I didn't understand.
I understand. Yeah. What are the biggest challenges for you out there?
I think the competitors are really strong. It's really hard for me because it's my first race and doesn't have so much experience in the prototypes. But yes, I have to manage it well, and yes.
And you managed it very well, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, he's really impressed those that hadn't realised he was in the entry, and quite how good he is, I'm sure. And we'll be hearing and seeing plenty more from Finn Gersitz, the 16-year-old from Stuttgart. Very present on social media, which is all about being a modern-day racing driver in this era. Just, some good things to come, you get the feeling from young Mr. Gersitz.
So the safety car did not pick up the leader.
No, I wondered that.
The leader has now gone into pit and make its driver change.
So any opportunity now for the 55 to be picked up has gone, because Rinaldi Racing scampering away from the safety car.
Well, the safety car is only now coming by the pits. Big advantage for the 55.
now we have to make sure, I suppose, that at no point the safety car did pick up the 55 and it didn't wriggle free unnoticed, because there will be a penalty heading the way of Rinaldi Racing if they have made the error. If it's from race control not picking the right car up, then there's nothing Rinaldi could have done about that, and they're perfectly in the right. So there's two different scenarios that will eventually unfold. Time will tell, but Dominic Schweger, having been sitting in the car for, well, not the 50 minutes yet, I don't think.
It's not Dominic Schweger, can't be. They were.
He hasn't rejoined yet.
No.
So, he stopped. The car has stopped.
Red light.
Because the red light, because of the safety car.
So this should adjust now.
And it changes to Steve Parrow.
So if
fine.
I'm correct, that car needs to stop twice again.
Yes, once for another driver change and once for the final 20-minute stop.
You cannot put the driver in at that fuel stop. I believe that's the rule.
And I will check that again in the regulations. I was up fairly late last night reading up on these things, but it's amazing how much you then forget the following day. But the second mandated stop has in the past been strictly limited to fuel, and that is it.
Yeah.
And it has to be a minute, it has to be rather 130 seconds.
Right, so now we're getting a wave by. So all cars between the number 25 car, which is the new leader, that is the Racing Spirit of the Mans car of Theo Chalau. He has Garrett Grist, Matt Bell, Hans Roweger, Tommy Foster, Colin Noble, Tom Dillman, who we've not mentioned at all yet, but
No.
Tom, one of the test drivers for the forthcoming Bicolis hypercar.
Thank you very much. All the cars which were behind the safety car and car 25 have now overtaken. I asked those cars to pick up the pace so that I can release the safety car.
So this will now be a process of just letting I think it's 3 cars effectively get that back. 4 cars will get that back. Once we've got them back in the train, we will get back to racing with at least 45 minutes to run, and still with cars having to pit out of sequence.
So here's the deal regarding the second stop. It must be 130 seconds in duration. It cannot be done before the 100-minute mark in the race, i.e. an hour and 40 minutes. The last 20 minutes, it has to take place then. And the only things you can do, refuel the car. You can clean or tear off or remove a tear off on the windscreen. You can adjust tyre temperatures and pressures, and you can change the drinks bottle. You cannot change your driver.
So that means the 55 car fundamentally has to come in twice again.
Yeah.
One of which has to be 130 second stop. The other one can be as quick as they can do a driver change.
Correct. And it'll be Steve Parrow back to Dominic Schweger for a second time. But the safety car remains out, and this provides us another opportunity to head to the pits and to Cool Racing to find out who Hayley Edmonds has managed to grab this time.
I'm joined here by Nicolas Lapierre, team principal of Cool Racing. Now, Nicolas, your team at number 37, the combined age is 37, which is your age. I mean, is that a bold move, to put such a young team out there?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love to have young kids in our team, and to see them moving on the endurance world for me is great. It's very challenging. We have to teach them a lot, but they are doing amazing. It's great. It's very exciting, and they did really good all this weekend. Obviously, Josh just made a small mistake, but this is also part of it. When you choose a young crew like this, you have to accept it. But let's moving forward and look in front. And I'm sure we'll have some great race soon with them.
And number 69 is doing great out there, currently sitting third. I mean, what are you telling them? How's that going?
Great. I mean, it's a very hard race in terms of strategy, but obviously Mo did a great first stint. He was running third for most of his stint, so that's fantastic from him. And now we have Matt Bell in the car. He's quite safe and good, so I'm looking forward to the end of the race.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I see where Hayley's going from that. I was just trying to judge whether Nicolas Lapierre appreciated being known as 37 or not. I think he's just the right side of 40 to still be naming his age, and he being comfortable with that. We'll ask him again in another 5 years. May have changed his tune. Graham, you're on the data as far as Steve Parrow is concerned. Now, we're bolting 2 stints together here.
We are.
To equal...
I think the last time through, I think he'd completed 33 minutes. So Steve needs to do another 17 minutes. This safety car is helping, but at that point he can pit again to pass the car to Dominic Schrager again.
Yes, so there will have been a total of 3 driver changes when actually you could have got away with only doing 1, but I see what Rinaldi Racing were up to there, rolling the dice when the opportunity permitted it, and with the safety car, why not try and get one of the long stops out of the way as early as possible, because the opportunity to just tweak the strategy and make very good use of it was certainly there. But subsequent safety cars, 2 more of them in fact, haven't really helped that team.
No.
And the way that they were deciding to tackle the race. Regardless, it could be a very interesting result nevertheless, with some of the lesser known teams right up there, like Racing Spirit of Le Mans, who currently lead with Taylor Chalal, Garrett Grist, who is a recognised name, but not necessarily with Team Virage, the Portuguese flagged team. Number 71, Cool Racing. We've just been hearing from Nicolas Lapierre from the Swiss squad, while Matt Bell's taken over from Maurice Smith in the 69 machine. It's now Hamza Ovega who pilots the number 5 Phoenix Racing Ligier, which was started by Finn Geertzitz, who we've heard from very recently too. And RLRM Sport now with Tommy Foster at the wheel of the number 15 car, the machine that was started by Mikey Benham.
So it's a bit of a frustrating start to the race for the second drivers. That was, I showed a doubt, barely a green flag lap for them. But what we are going to get is one heck of a group of cars together with something like 40 minutes to run.
Yeah. The 98 car appears now to be in a little bit of hot water. Now, to my mind, that was the one that was behaving itself when everybody else was charging out of the pits and it stopped at a red light. But it's just been reported to the stewards as car 98, Motorsport 98 entry, for disobeying the safety car procedure.
So is that something to do with it? It's actually is the last car in the train.
Yes.
So it's not, sorry, not in the train, it's the last car off the
Safety
train.
car lights
Yes,
off,
and
safety car is coming in at the end of this lap.
It's trying to really up the pace to make sure that it is with the safety car train at the restart. The car that is tacked onto the back of the safety car train is the 55, which, remember, wriggled away from the safety car, not through any fault of its own, we think, and enabled that car to stop a little earlier than it would have done had it been behind the safety car. So 55 is now with Steve Parrow controlling it. The 98, which had Eric de Donker to start it, now has Dino Lunardi piloting and is running in 17th position. But we're waiting for further messages regarding the 98 car to see whether that will have to come down pit lane. We're back to green flag running though, and the third safety car of this bit troubled event to this point. Very stop-start affair, but no less interesting because of it. And are we going to get a full green flag run now to the finish in the remaining 42 and a bit minutes? Is the big question.
Well, we'll wait and see, and certainly pit stops out of sequence still to come from a number of cars. Teo Chalal it is that leads the field away, the 25 car, with a gap because he's got lapped cars between him and the second place car, which is the Team Virage car of Garrett Grist.
Yeah. Chalal, Grist, Bell for Racing Spirit of Le Mans, Team Virage and Cool Racing respectively. Then the 5 from Phoenix Racing 4th, RLRM Sport car 15 for Tommy Foster is in 5th ahead of Colin Noble. Tony Wells, I remember, for Nielsen Racing being 6th in and around that sort of position. So despite their driver change, they've generally held station. And there is the scope to improve on the 6th place at the moment, with still the best part of 3/4 of an hour still to go. And Tony Wells and Colin Noble can obviously draw on all of the experience they've had, including winning the last race of last year's Michelin Le Mans Cup. So the Middlesbrough man has done all of his driving time, handing over to Edinburgh's Colin Noble. And let's see how far up the order he can get. He's got the rapid Tom Dillman behind him for Mulner Motorsports. Wayne Boyd is obviously not going to be hanging around, nor Nicholas Varone for Rinaldi Racing. And Adam Iteki as well, you can lump into that. There's some really strong names in the middle order here that will be no doubt heading towards the sharp end. You can't squeeze them all into the top 3 though.
First, the penalties that we're expecting. Drive-through penalty for car 56. That is the R-Brakes competition. Ades, that's for speeding in pit lane. Just giving you a look on the data. Adam Iteki, you mentioned him in the CD Sport car. If my data is correct, they're going to have to pit again, because it looked as if Michael Jensen might have been 8 seconds short of his driving time.
That's all it takes. I mean, it could be tenths of seconds shy of driving time, but
yeah.
No, there's always the chance that the data is slightly out, so we can't always rely on it. And Alcamel will provide to race control timings to the thousandth of a second should it be required. So we are, to a certain extent, guesstimating there. But we will keep our eye on any further messages. No doubt about the fact that the 56 Ades will have to come in to serve a drive-through penalty, but that's not a stop-go. It is straight through the pit lane at the 60 km/h speed limit. Team Virage's Garrett Grist and Cool Racing's Matt Bell. There are only 0.8 of a second between them for second and third positions, with Hamza Owega just behind in fourth. And the 56 car, sideways, clears out a bit of debris sitting on the racetrack as well for the Ades 03. Overlapping this time for the number 31 car, which was side by side. And heading out of turn number 12 now, the car that was earlier driven by Crichton Lendudis and is now with Rui Aguas, the Portuguese, at the wheel.
Garrett Grist, Matt Bell amongst a group of drivers that have got a fantastic opportunity here. This has fallen beautifully for them to be in touch with the leader. This is the league battle. The car with the black nose is number 25 of Shalal. Garrett Grist right in his wheel tracks and just a second and a half back as Grist goes up the inside. Before turn one makes that look easy. Garrett Grist away and clear. And Team Virage, in their very first race as full season entrants in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, looking good for a fantastic result. Matt Bell, though, second and a half back here, will have something to say about that. And there's others closing too.
Yeah, Virage off camera were going absolutely start raving bonkers then because of Garrett Grist's brilliant overtake for the race lead. And as you say, there are a number of other drivers capable of getting close to Garrett Grist, but this is an opportunity for the Canadian, who's always shown the potential for consistent race wins, to tick one off with a team that he's only associated with from this season. But it could be the perfect marriage between Canada and Poland, with a stop off in Spain along the way.
Yeah, that is Matt Bell, the number 69 car. The car ahead of him is not Garrett Grist, that's the team car from Team Virage, the 16 car of Sasha Lehmann, I think it is, in that car. And Sasha is not making it easy for Garrett Grist, Grist's probably principal competitor at this point to get by. He's got to be careful that he doesn't interfere with the race.
Yeah.
There's Garrett Grist with a bit of traffic still. It's the delayed AF Corsa car. Rui Aguas it is at the wheel of that car. Great to see Rui back in a full pro contemporary race.
So Grist through turn 16 and down the main straight. Grist goes across the line in the race lead. Thelo Shalal for Racing Spirit of Le Mans in second. Matt Bell for Cool Racing third. And Hamza Owega in fourth position in the Phoenix Racing entry. Tommy Foster for RLRM Sport and Colin Noble for Nielsen. Meanwhile in GT3, let's not overlook what's going on there. 1.9 seconds is the difference between Julian Andlauer in the TFT Porsche and the Iron Lynx Ferrari of Paolo Roberti. There's only 0.4 of a second back to Matteo Cressoni. Of course, they were all concertinaed up behind the safety car, and that has really spiced up the GT3 battle. Easy to overlook that, down in 21st position overall, but far from decided. And Kenneth Heyer will be looking to get involved as well. The problem for him is he's got about 7 seconds to find on the top three currently.
No messing about from Garrett Grist. He's in the 142s, whilst in traffic Matt Bell, third, is now 4.6 seconds back, and in the 145s cannot get around that traffic. He won't be amused by that. There he is. He's third in that group. That is the second place car, then a lapped car, the second of the Team Virage cars, then Matt Bell. And behind Matt Bell, it's Hamza Owega right with him. Tommy Foster a second back. Colin Noble just 10th behind that. Then Tom Dillman, Scott Andrews, Adam Itake and Wayne Boyd. That is the top 10. The top 10 separated, by the way, by 12 seconds.
Heading down into the chicane, this real crucial part of the lap, determining your top speed as you head across the line out of turn 16. So Grist with the advantage. It's nearly up to 5 seconds now from Taylor Shalal for Racing Spirit of Le Mans. Then Matt Bell in the Cool Racing entry. And he's trying to get a hustle on, but Graham makes a point. Is he being held up at all? Taking a little look up the inside then of the 16 car. But you can just get the feeling that the Team Virage entry, the sister car to Garrett Grist's machine, is not going to make it easy for Matt Bell to get through. Hamza Ovega taking a watching brief in that number 5 Phoenix Racing car. He's only a second adrift. Then Tommy Foster, Colin Noble, Tom Dillman for RLR, Nielsen and Mulner respectively. This is crescendoing nicely, Graham Goodwin.
It is, and there's battles still to be won and lost here. I get the sense that Matt Bell beginning to get very frustrated indeed with this. He's 2 seconds slower on each lap than the leading car in the hands of Garrett Grist, and they've been, well, battle buddies, haven't they, for the last 2 or 3 seasons in LMP3. Matt Bell knows what it takes to beat Garrett Grist, and what it takes to beat Garrett Grist is to get past the car behind him and catch him.
Yeah.
For starters, this is the battle for second place in GT3, the 2 Ferraris. Apologies. It's Paolo Roberti and Matteo Cressoni, 2 very capable drivers. They've got LMP3 cars to deal with as well. That's the TS Corsa car coming up the inside.
Kenneth Hyers going the wrong way here. He wants to get involved in the top 3, but it's built now to just under 11 seconds, the gap between the German and Matteo Cressoni, who is at the moment holding the 3rd step at the podium. But there's carnage at the chicane, which involves the DKR Engineering Duquesne and another machine. Spot who that was clashing, but let's just try and work out who it was from the cars around.
It wasn't a car on the same lap.
No, I didn't think so either.
And it's the damage to another car. Still, Matt Bell can't get by the number 16 car. Now this is starting to look as if really that 16 car should not be doing this. He's a lap down.
Yeah.
Should not be getting involved at this point.
And quite clearly there are strong connections between the race leader, who Matt Bell is ultimately trying to catch, and this lapped car. And race control need to be well aware of that as well, because Matt Bell has the speed to get by, but if he's not being allowed the track position in order to well, I mean, the 16 should not be holding Matt Bell up. There should be blue flags being waved in the direction of the 16, and it should be stepping out of the way, especially after this many laps with Matt Bell tucked in behind. And the last thing Matt wants to be doing is running the risk of a kind of gambling overtake. Two moves.
That's the point at which the time should be called on this.
Yeah, agreed. There was one move on the approach to turn 1, and then a change of direction again from Sasha Lehmann. And surely this is all part of the plan from Team Virage to protect the race lead. So a spin for the 3, and off in sympathy went, I think, a Mulner Motorsport Duquesne. And the 2 did not make contact. It may have been Tom Dillman, you know, in the 18 car that had to straight line 15. There's going to be a 1-minute stop and go penalty for the 17 and the 73 cars for overtaking a stop car at pit exit. So that was when the red light was on. Motorsport 98 obeyed the red light, but the 17 car, which is the EDEX Sport entry, and 73 TS Corsa, both going to have to come in for 1 minute stop and go.
11th and 13th. So by the look of it, everybody else got away with that because the light would have been green.
Yeah.
But to overtake, as they did, heavily punished for that. Still, Matt Bell cannot get by. Do not put a live camera on Matt Bell after this race.
Again, defensive driving is fine if you are on the same lap, but bear in mind this is not Garrett Grist we're talking about. This is the Sasha Lehmann driven 16 Team Virage teammate, and after this amount of time you should be allowing the 3rd place car through, and Sasha Lehmann is not doing that. If anything, he's holding Matt Bell up, and Matt Bell wants to challenge Teo Shalal and then wants to challenge Garrett Grist, but is not being permitted to do so. Team managers of car 12 and 22 now being called to race control. Black Falcon.
And that's United Autosports as well.
It is. Desperately trying to hunt around in my brain as to what that might refer to.
Scott Andrews' car at the moment.
And the 12 is being driven by, well, was started by Donna Munding. We heard from him, and Mike Rosenberg has taken it over.
But not necessarily the same incident.
Indeed. What it doesn't tell us is what driver was involved in the potential incident that race control are hunting.
Well, the telling part here is not only is that Virage car still holding up this train behind, but the car in second place ahead, Théo Chalal, has not escaped.
No, but the issue is that Garrett Grist has. It's nearly 8 seconds now, the advantage he has over Théo Chalal, and Matt Bell will say afterwards, well, I had the pace to catch him, and I wasn't allowed to do so. And now the problem for Matt is he's got more pressure from behind in the form of Tommy Foster in the RLR colours, which is the black, orange and white of the championship winning team in LMP3, where not Joop van Uitert took
one
the
move
victory.
there, goes to the outside, runs over
some debris.
Makes
And
him.
Matt Bell to the outside of turn number 1. Sasha Lehmann defending on the inside.
And now he's under pressure for the 2 cars behind. Colin Noble's getting involved here as well. Cool Racing, RM Sport and Nielsen. This is going to go horribly wrong.
But for me, that rule about one line, one direction change is fine if you're on the same lap as the car you're battling with, but Sasha Lehmann is a lap down.
Yeah.
Has to get out of the way here, not only for Matt Bell's benefit, but for Tommy Foster and for Colin Noble as well, because they are being denied the chance to finish on the podium here, they could argue. And Lehmann defending massively, so much so that Matt Bell couldn't even see that massive chunk of debris in the middle of the road, had to run over it. So much forceful driving required here from the man from Newcastle, and it is needless.
Yeah, it's let's hope this ends well.
For everyone else's benefit,
Yeah.
because when you've got a grumpy Matt Bell on your hands, it's difficult to have a discussion with him, and many discussions will be had with race control towards the
I
end.
just had a visual picture of Rob Bell nodding his head in sympathy, saying yes.
Yeah, well, I feel like I can speak reasonably relaxed regarding that, because I do know him out of the race cars as well, and he won't be reacting well to this, and quite rightly so, because there's your race leader, perfectly legitimately so, but you've got a team car that is holding other machinery
Now
up.
10 seconds up the road.
Yeah.
And this has cost Matt Bell, I think, at least 6 or 7 seconds.
Yeah, because now the gap for Garrett Grist over the rest of the field is nearly 10.5 seconds. And I'm not denying Garrett Grist a cracking race victory here at all. He more than deserves this with a brand new team. But for me, it just leaves a bitter taste in the mouth as to how Virage are going about this to ensure probably a victory that will go in their way anyway. But the 71 is doing nothing wrong here. They are winning the race, and that's all they need to do.
This is coming in for the 60-second stop and hold.
Half an hour to go, by the way. GT3 still with PZ Aubert Zurichsee by TFT, leading by now 3.5 seconds over Paolo Roberti for Iron Lynx. Matteo Cressoni for AF Corsa Car 51 in third, with Kenneth Haya more and more distant, I'm afraid to say. But we will have 3 different manufacturers in GT3 in the top 4, as long as that Mercedes AMG takes the finish. Kenneth Haya taking charge of that car after a good opening stint from Wim Spinoy, the bronze-rated driver for the German team. There's the Porsche then, that leads with now Julian Anlauer at the wheel, but all the heavy lifting was done by Nicky Leutwiler.
A great stint from Nicky Leutwiler.
He lost the lead, he got it back again, and brought the car into the pit chain, the driver change, as the class leader.
Yeah, now Matt Bell under pressure from Tommy Foster behind, as he tries to gird his loins for another crack at the car ahead of him, on track, not ahead of him in the order, of course.
So Bell, Foster, Noble, then Scott Andrews for United Autosports, and then the Mulner Motorsport car of Tom Dillman.
I'm not at all sure why Sasha Lehmann is flashing his lights at the second place car ahead of him.
No. Do you think the team haven't actually told him that he's off the lead lap here?
I don't know, but either way,
because if he doesn't know, there's not a lot he can do about it. But it is the team's responsibility to inform him, you should not be racing these cars, because we are, in reality, 18th in the overall standings. They're not third, and therefore this huge queue developing behind Sasha Lehmann's car.
And there are blue flags being shown.
There are blue flags being shown, and there may well have been blue flags being waved for a while. Obviously, the way that we're witnessing this race, not always catching the marshal posts and what they are displaying, but the radio messages will have been going for a fair while now. You get the impression from race control to say, give the 16 car a number of warnings, and then there has to be a finite point where clearly Sacha Lehmann is not obeying the instruction, and further sanctions must be taken. The benefit for Matt Bell, as you've made the point, is that Taylor Shalal is not stretching his legs here.
So he's not. The second place is still within reach, but the win, or the battle for the lead, is increasingly looking to
more and more secure, isn't it?
Garrett Grist's way with no fight is
Yeah.
the point. And if you look at the trail of cars here, this could have been our lead battle.
It could very easily. And although Taylor Shalal hasn't quite got the speed in the racing spirit of Le Mans car to take the fight to Garrett Grist, who's to say that anybody behind Sacha Lehmann might have been able to find a bit more, and we will never know.
So the gaps, just to make this clear, so we've got 12 seconds now between Garrett Grist and Taylor Shalal. It's then a less than a second from Shalal to Matt Bell with the Virage car between. And was that a positional change in? No, it wasn't. Liberty is still ahead. We've then got behind that Tommy Foster 0.3 of a second, Colin Noble 0.3 of a second, Scott Andrews 0.4 of a second, Tom Dillman 0.4 of a second, Adam Ateki 0.3 of a second is the trail behind.
And maybe thinking about a move on Tommy Foster was Colin Noble that time around. His number 7 car just jinked out of line briefly. The danger is when you're attacking and defending at the same time, you go for a move on Tommy Foster and risk losing a spot to Scott Andrews. This is a delicate position to be in for all of the cars as we're about to head to Cool Racing to catch up with Maurice Smith now with Hayley.
I'm down here with Maurice Smith. Sorry. Oh, apparently just scared. With my loud voice in the speaker. Driver of car number 69 for Cool Racing. I can see you shaking your head, watching what's going on out there. Sacha Lehmann is in front of Matt Bell, who's currently in third. What's your take on the situation?
Yes, you're correct. He is currently ahead of Matt Bell. And he's holding up a large train of cars right now. So hopefully we can get by him. I think we just did.
We're watching.
There.
They have a penalty. Sorry, I'm just hearing in my ear. Who has a penalty?
So he's firing now.
So obviously the news is finally reaching Cool Racing. I'll say finally, it's only just been announced by Race Control, but Sacha Lehmann and the 16 car will get a drive-through penalty. Here's Hayley again.
Been given. If I've just heard in my ear. So I mean, do you think justice has been served? I mean, how did you feel about that? Is this what racing's all about?
Yes, it's what racing's about, but we just wasted 7 laps of tire life to get by a back marker, and everybody backed up. So it's very difficult, frustrating, but we're racing and we're by him now, so we'll see how things work.
Good. Okay, well, good to see. Thank you very much, Maurice.
You're welcome.
So 2 drive-through penalties, one for the 16 car as mentioned, Sacha Lehmann, and the number 12 will get a drive-through for not respecting the red light at the end of the pit lane. It sounds like that incident is still being interrogated, but the bigger one, the more precedent one, is the fact that the more present one is the 16 car, which is still, okay, it's allowed Matt Bell through. I think that's actually just good overtaking from Matt Bell. What we're not seeing is Sacha Lehmann concede these positions as he must do by obeying the red flag, obeying the blue flags.
And now a drive-through penalty for blocking.
Yes.
He's sailing very, very close to wind here. And you know what? What a gentleman we had there explain their point of view. 7 laps of wasted opportunity, really.
Yep.
That's not amusing.
A gentleman driver in the truest sense of the word, and well, you don't ever find Maurice Smith hanging back in terms of pace out there on the racetrack, but he was very diplomatic, I thought, voicing his concern from Cool Racing, and there may be some rather firmer written evidence produced to the race control from that team in due course, because that is not, yes, it's racing to an extent, but it became deliberate after a while from Sacha Lehmann.
100%.
And
I mean, no doubt
that's
whatsoever.
not what we want to see.
That's not okay.
No,
it's, I think, the phrase I'd like to use there. It's
very
not
good.
Okay.
Hey, you're down with the kids.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now we do have a second place, and a true second place battle between Taylor Shalal and Matt Bell. And Shalal can be in Matt Bell's way as much as he wants. As long as he's not overly defending and changing lines, it is down to Matt to force the opportunity to get up to second position.
This is a real will battle. He can defend. And let's be blunt, we've got a second place battle between Théo Chalal, Matt Bell, Tommy Foster, Colin Noble, Scott Andrews, Tom Dillman and Adam Ategi, because we've got that whole group of cars now close together on track. Adam Ategi just bottled up there behind what looks like the AF Corsa car. And maybe here Matt Bell gets an opportunity, just slightly checked up in there behind the traffic.
Look what the Adess is doing though. The Adess just drives almost off the racetrack to allow this long train through. Why could we not have seen that from Team Virage after just a handful of laps, really, of just sitting where it was, and the blue flags seemingly completely ignored. So Sasha Lehmann will drive through and serve his penalty, I think. Has done, okay.
Car 22 gets a penalty. That is Scott Andrews, who's in this train that is exiting the pit lane with a red light. Have we got more of these to come?
I got the feeling that that whole incident was going to take a little while to get to the bottom of, and much CCTV footage would have to be interrogated to work out all of the drivers that had committed that crime of driving through a red light. Motorsport 98, we know, stopped, but a lot of cars that were behind Dino Lunardi at the end of the pit lane just decided to drive around him rather than come to a halt. Really good fight now. Okay, delivered in the wrong sort of sense, but let's enjoy it whilst we can. Garrett Grist is 21 seconds away and gone on his 51st lap. But what is left is Matt Bell and Théo Chalal. If he's not careful, he's going to lose positions to Tommy Foster and possibly more as well. Foster's got the inside line on the run into turn 7 and gets the place.
Well done.
Now what about Colin Noble? Because this is the time to pounce, because Théo Chalal is out of his rhythm. He's off kilter and he's now overtaken by Colin Noble as well.
Wow.
And that's typical of kind of American stock car racing. You get out of the groove and you're going to tumble all the way down the order. The Mulner Motorsport car might be the next one through of Tom Dillman. So that is very much the champagne cork being cracked from the bottle. CD Sport might be able to get up the inside of or the outside of Tom Dillman as well. Who's driving that? Adam Ateki, as you've mentioned, in the 33. And Ateki will be able to take away another spot from Théo Chalal, who must be wondering what on earth is happening right now. It feels like he's in a washing machine, quite probably.
You are quite right, by the way. It was indeed Tom Dillman that was involved in that clash with the DKR car. That is under investigation. Black and white flag, by the way, for car 93 for abuse of track limits.
Interesting it's labelled as contact. I didn't see the two cars touch, but it might have been before the incident actually began when I was witnessing that. So there may have been some contact going into turn 14, which resulted in the number 3 car rotating. I think that's Chalal losing another spot.
That's Team 4.
Yes.
They're way down at 17th place, but they'll be pleased with that in their first international competition at this level.
So Chalal not actually losing a place. He's being unlapped there by Tom Ashton, who shares the car with Auden Goodmanson. 18 back in. Now this is the first of our stoppers for the long stops at the end of the race, remember. You have to do another 130-second stop in the final 20 minutes. There's now 17 and a half minutes left on the clock, so you're okay to do that final stop now.
Also, it is the 55 car. This will be the first of 2 required stops for them. They've changed the tyre as well. This will be Dominic Schrager getting back into the car. Steve Parra having completed his required driver time.
Matt Bell second in P3, Tommy Foster third, Colin Noble fourth, and Scott Andrews in fifth. Remember, everyone's basically jumped up one because of that overtake initiated by Matt Bell on Théo Chalal, and everybody else followed suit. And Chalal now, pressure on from Hamza Ovega for Phoenix Racing, and also in another queue, Wayne Boyd. 37 is in there, and that car actually recovering from quite a way down in the Cool Racing machine. It's Josh Skelton after that spin, which saw him drop his rear wheels into the turn 10 gravel. Grain Market Racing's Ligier heads down pit road. Duquesne, I should say, for Grain Market Racing, in the Alex Mortimer now driven car that was started by Mark Crader. So Grain Market in for their final stop, along with Leonard Weiss, the WTM powered by Phoenix team. Mulner Motorsports' Tom Milner, as I mentioned, also in. And these cars having already served a pit stop that was 2 minutes and 10 in duration, having to do another one in the final 20 minutes. But this can be fuel only, not allowed to do tyres or a driver change during this stop. You can change minor things like tyre pressures, switch the drinks bottle if you wish. What happened here a moment or two ago, the Phoenix car all over the road with Hamza Ovega, pressure on from the Cool Racing car of Josh Skelton. They're not on the same lap, but Skelton wanting to unlap himself from 15th position.
And just to kind of put the final nail in that earlier debate about the backing up of the field behind the Team Virage car, instantly that's gone. Everybody's 2 seconds a lap quicker.
Yeah. No, it was definitely having an impact. And the Sasha Lehmann, well, it was either his decision or an information coming from the team. That was the car at fault. What it shouldn't detract from is the Garrett Grist drive in the sister Team Virage car, because he's entirely the innocent party. And it's either a tactic taken on board by the team as a whole or by Sasha independently. I fancy the former somehow. We've seen it before, and I'm sure that won't be the last time that a bit of team racing creeps in, but it was spotted by the officials and suitably punished with that drive-through penalty. But every credit to the other half of Team Virage for Rob Hodes and Garrett Grist, who now extend the gap to 22 seconds. Matt Bell really won't be able to do much about that in the closing 15 minutes. His concentration, sole concentration, will be on defending from Tommy Foster, and if anything, hoping that Foster gets more involved with Colin Noble in that scrap for the final step on the podium. We do still have the potential variable of one more stop for some of the LMP3 cars, including the Motorsport 98 machine from Belgium.
Which is also going to get a drive-through penalty beyond this for overtaking during the safety car, car 25, and the safety car. So it overtook both, I think, what was then the race leader, I think, and the safety car. So it looks to me as if whoever's aboard 98 was confused about the wave-by.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I suppose there's two sides to every story, and the team chiefs, the team principals of the teams involved will have had their chance to voice their point of view, but drive-through penalty is the result of those conversations for car 98. Despite it behaving itself at the end of pit road when there was a red light illuminated, it's been spotted for something else, and fair cop in that respect. GTs still very close indeed. 4 seconds is now the difference between Julian Andlauer and Paolo Roberti, a Porsche and Ferrari classic scrap.
This is another scrap here between the Racing Spirit Le Mans car and the 66 Rinaldi, 5 Phoenix car behind. So this is the battle for 7th position now between Theo Chalal, Nicolas Varon and Hamza Ovega, as the CD Sport car of Adam Ateki comes in. I still think, we'll wait and see what happens at the end of the race. I think his co-driver was just short on time. It could be the data slightly off. In come this pair of cars, 25 and the 5
car from Phoenix, yes.
For their final 132nd stop.
So not expecting a driver change for Hamza Ovega, and Taylor Shalal will stay in as well, but Shalal has been losing a little bit of time. He'd been doing actually well to stay ahead, aided by Sasha Lehmann, admittedly, in the sister Virage car, but once one car had managed to squeeze through, i.e. Matt Bell, it was just a steady wave of LMP3s overtaking on the left, on the right, and poor old Taylor Shalal didn't quite know where to look next. I think if there'd been fewer cars ready to pounce, the damage would have been quite a bit less for Taylor Shalal, who will go away and reassess after holding firm in second position for a lengthy period of time. There's a bit of tape required for the nose of the number 5 car. There should be a bit of bodywork over the top of there, shouldn't there, on the top of the nose.
Yes.
And the problem is, because that's open to the elements, it's just going to be slowing the car down. And the tape, Graham says the tape's not going to last. I think that's a fair assessment.
You can see the AC official taking a close look there. He's thinking, that's not going to last.
Well, they have got the time to do this. And as long as they're not... I mean, this is in the regulations, I believe, as the work that can take place in the second of the mandatory stops. Matt Bell a moment or two ago running over that debris. Let's hope that that doesn't bite Cool Racing later on in this race, eating away at the Michelin tyres.
So in terms of what we've got in the front of this race right now, Colin Noble, by the way, is on pit lane now for his final stop. All, I believe, of the top 5 cars still need to make a stop. I think Scott Andrews may need to make the stop for fuel at the end of this race. Colin Noble is in at the moment. The Black Falcon car, they need to stop. 9th. 10th Team Thor need to stop. Car 12 is reported to the stewards for not respecting the drive-through penalty. That's not good
yes. Expected drive-through. Okay, so they've been assessed a penalty,
and they
now
didn't take it quickly enough.
Yeah, which is sometimes 5 laps, is it? You get to actually take it. I forget the exact figure in this year's regulations, but it's sufficient time to take a drive-through.
The car that to me looks as if it's miscalculated is possibly the Grey Market Racing car. Alex Mortimer's bought the car, and the 33 cars off.
CD Sport, the Spanish squad racing at their home event, and Michael Jensen.
It was Michael Jensen getting back in because he hadn't done, and he's come straight out. I suspect he was coming in for 1 lap.
So Ademir Teki handing back to his Danish teammate briefly, and he's lost the car at turn 4. And there's a gravel trap very close to the edge of the road there.
Result gone begging there.
Such a shame.
Matt Bailey, by the way, is in now to take his fuel stop. Grey Market Racing had done a second stop. He'd lost it before the corner, hadn't he?
Yeah, I'm just making sure that the number 3 DKR engineering car wasn't involved. I don't think it was.
Could have been just trying to get by him.
Yes.
Or checked up behind him, and it's caught him out.
And actually reacted very well indeed, if that indeed was Dario Cangialosi.
So the Grey Market Racing car has had a second stop, but it did it in 2 minutes and 3 seconds. It's just short.
That's too short.
So
by 7 seconds.
Is that an error, or was that just a long, short stop, if you see what I mean? Either way, they've got to come in again.
It's a very long, short stop,
Isn't it?
Because everybody else that was deliberately doing a short stop, closer to the 90 or 100 second marker, smacks to me as a 130 second stop cut short by 6 or 7 seconds, and that is all it takes. So stories up and down the pit lane here.
Full course yellow coming.
Full course yellow to deal with. You have to think the stranded Michael Jensen car at turn 4. Yes, it's still there and embedded deeply in the gravel. 8.5 minutes to go, but not a safety car. So any gaps again won't
10,
be condensed. And
9,
Garrett Grist
8,
must be
7,
so happy about
6,
Why didn't Garrett
5,
Grist pit?
4, 3.
He's been past
2,
the pit lane, hasn't he?
1.
Why didn't he pit knowing? He
course
must
yellow,
have known
full
the full
course
course yellow was
yellow.
coming. Why didn't he pit?
I'm trying to work out where he is on the racetrack
He's just
right now.
completed a lap.
Yes, he has. He's rounding turn 3 and heading
Tommy,
up to 4.
If Tommy Foster pits now, that could
change the complexion of the race
completely.
entirely. And the problem,
And he does.
The problem for Garrett is he's circulating now at 80 kph. How long is it going to take him to get round to the end of the lap and to have a chance to pit?
That's a major mistake from Team Virage. Now, did Wayne Boyd pit?
Wayne has stayed out, but I'm not sure
he's not past the pit yet.
He hasn't had the opportunity to. He's in the pits now.
He is now, and I think Scott Andrews will as well.
Car 22 has disappeared from my tracker, so that means he's in the pit lane too.
Yep, they have. Cool Racing.
So Virage have scored an own goal here.
Well, Matt Bell was unlucky. He pitted just before the full course yellow, so he's lost out there. Here comes the Grey Market Racing car.
Car number 20.
This is the car that I thought had made the mistake.
Yeah. And Michael Jensen is going to be back in the race with the aid of a reverse gear, so long as it will locate and engage correctly, which it just about does now.
I think Michael will go straight back into the pits, because that will be his time done to hand over.
Even more time than expected, because he's been sitting in the car in the gravel trap, so he should have more than enough drive time now. But what about Team Virage and Garrett Grist, who must be thinking, I wanted to be in the pit lane?
Well, they have to hope this full course yellow lasts rather longer. Now, where are they on track at the moment? They're not about halfway round?
9 to 10 they are. About to head for the newly reprofiled turn 10.
But this will go back to green.
But the reason for the full course yellow is no longer there.
No.
That's the CD Sport car.
As soon as the intervention vehicle is clear of the track, we'll go back to green.
And this very soon after the full course yellow is withdrawn, Tommy Foster will return to the racetrack, having completed his longer stop, 2 necessary for each car, and Tommy will have done that. Wayne Boyd will have done the same. Scott Andrews will be in a perfect position as well. And there is a very strong danger here, if you're in the Team Virage camp, that the top 3 will overtake Garrett Grist, because of the heads-up thought about when to do the pit stop.
He's got to be in the pits for 2 minutes and 10 seconds. A racing lap is 1 minute and 42. He's coming in now.
Yep.
If this goes green within 30 seconds,
that's it. Podium gone. Well, Tommy Foster's back in the race. We're still waiting for the 2 United Autosports cars to return, of Wayne Boyd and Scott Andrews. Garrett Grist now through the timing loop, and this is where the 2 minutes and 10 seconds starts to tick by. But already back into the race, Tommy Foster and Wayne Boyd. Now, there is an argument to say that race control could look fairly kindly onto this and think, let's give everybody the opportunity to make their stop within the full course yellow, but he did have opportunity, didn't he? And he turned it down. So it's a moot point.
Well, number one, the team were on the radio.
We are at 15 seconds to remove full course yellow.
It's tight.
It's
really tight.
10,
well, 15
9,
seconds will not take them to the end of this 2 minute and 10 second stop.
5,
it's not enough.
4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow removed. Full course yellow removed.
So at the moment, this bizarre situation with 4 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock, our race leader is in the pit lane, now serving the rest of its long stop, the one that was mandated in the regulations at the start of the weekend. You must do 2 130-second pit stops, the second of which must be performed in the final 20 minutes of the race. Tommy Foster for RLR M Sport has done that, as have the chasing Wayne Boyd and Scott Andrews, and it's now down to the clock ticking down.
Turn 8, turn 9
are the
chasers.
The chasers. Car 15 we're looking for as the first of those.
Turn 10, Tommy Foster. Turn 11.
Yeah, the RLR M Sport colours now emerging at turn 12. And 2 minutes and 10 could not elapse any slower as far as Garrett Grist is concerned.
There's traffic for the number 15 car. He's
but
in
it may
turn
not
14.
matter. It may not matter. I'm looking now.
He's rolling.
He's rolling towards the end of the pit lane, is Garrett Grist. So that blue letter P will change to a yellow letter O to indicate the outlap.
Not yet. Here he comes. But where is the 15? The 15 is passing the pits now.
He's on the main straight.
It's going to be right there.
This is the motor race right
he's
here.
There. He's in the lead.
Him.
He's in the lead.
Good gracious. Tommy Foster now taking the race lead because Garrett Grist, and more specifically Team Virage, were not on their game, did not call Garrett in at the right point. They had the opportunity and have now lost a potential race win at the start of the season. And how close are the 2 United Autosports cars? Right with Garrett Grist, surely. No, he's got a bit of an advantage on the 22 and the 23, and he's now got 3 minutes to try and reverse those positions.
Well. So the 15 car in traffic, he's got 3 minutes. Plus whatever lap he's on, Garrett Grist will be lit here.
Traffic ahead for Tommy Foster though as well.
Look at the faces there.
RLR M Sport can't quite believe the amount of luck that's headed their way, but they, remember, deserve this fully because they read the situation just as well as Team Virage did not. And Mikey Benham and Tommy Foster. Foster needs to be careful here though about the slower 25 car. Teo Shalal, I think, still at the wheel of the 25.
4 seconds is the gap, Johnny.
Can't be affording to force an overtake then when it's not on, because the last thing we want from the 19-year-old Brit is unnecessary contact. Let's not overlook the GT3 battle as well. Julian Andlau is up to 8th place overall in the number 2 TFT Sport Porsche, leading Paolo Roberti for Iron Lynx and the Matteo Cressoni driven AF Corsa Ferrari number 51. Black, orange and white colours of RLR M Sport cross the line with, I think, less than a lap time to go.
It didn't say it's last lap, so I think it's tight. I think it might be 2 laps.
All right.
It's not signalled on our screens as the final lap.
I think a minute and 43 was still
face.
the picture of concentration, although he broke
I
from
remember,
it briefly.
this
didn't
would be a first ELMS race win for Mike. He's won in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. He's never won in the European Le Mans Series.
This is the Michelin Le Mans Cup, though. Remember, Graham?
My apologies.
You're a day ahead. You're so excited.
But in which case it would be a second team on his debut with them. Tommy
Having
Foster
won with
in his
Landon before.
debut.
Yeah,
Absolutely fantastic
Landon
stuff
Racing, much success with teammate Duncan Tappy back in those days. But Garrett Grist is looming large. This is a tricky place for Tommy Foster to be in, because he's got Taylor Shalal right in front. He's got one of the Mulner Motorsport cars tucked in behind as well. And remember, brand new to these cars, Tommy Foster.
Up the inside of the racing team. He's away now and clear. Now it's Garrett Grist that needs to deal with the traffic. The gap under 3 seconds, but we've got what we think is a full lap in about 40 seconds.
I think it's tight, you know, Graham. I think there was less than a lap time still to go. I think actually there might have been a full lap time on the clock. So which way will the starter decide to go on this?
And Scott Andrews is absolutely pouring on the pressure as well.
Yes, from that third place. But heading now towards the chicane, well, just before the chicane, turn 13. If he backs off and goes the pace of the Ferrari, this will be the end of the race. 6 seconds, 5 seconds, still got turn 16 to go. 2-1, this is surely the end of the race. And Tommy Foster looking out for the checkered flag, which is displayed.
He's taken
There's
the win.
The race win.
Amazing stuff.
RLR M Sport take the most bizarre race victory, quite possibly of the season. You watch now, we'll get 5 more races like this through the rest of the year, which are just as unpredictable. But after 60 laps, Tommy Foster and RLR M Sport together, let us not forget, with Mikey Benham, whose expressions were priceless
Absolutely
in the last few laps
stuff.
there. And RLR M Sport, a champion already in the ELMS at LMP3 level, take a victory in the Michelin Le Mans Cup with Tommy Foster and Mikey Benham, and a penny for all those thoughts down at Team Virage right now, who had a victory in their grasp.
That deal, by the way, the Michelin Le Mans Cup deal for the number 15 car, came together so late that at the moment, not a full season entry. It's a race-by-race entry for them. But amazing stuff there.
They'll want to make that a full season entry now,
I think
won't they?
I think
that's the worst thing that could possibly have happened to win the first one.
But I got to feel for Garrett Grist. Got to feel for Garrett Grist.
Of course. He didn't do anything wrong. He built a 20+ second lead. He and Rob Hodes worked so hard for that victory, which was there for the taking. And just a momentary lapse of concentration, possibly, from the Polish outfit Team Virage. They did not call Garrett Grist in at the right time. He had to wait for his pit stop, and that's what finally did for them. TFT, PZ Obera, Zurichsee by TFT with their Porsche, victorious on 2 separate occasions last season. It's a win to kickstart season 2021, and that is what it means to Nicky Leutwiler. You can hear him in the background embracing the whole of the team. They're in their own bubble for this weekend, so that is permitted. Most of the mechanics down there wearing the masks anyway. And congratulations to Julian Anlauer, who made that all possible. Actually, though, the hard work was done by Nicky Leutwiler, who had a stonking fight with Rino Mastronardi in that opening 55 minutes or so. Lost the lead, got it back again in traffic, and Julian Anlauer never looked back.
Isn't that the sweetest way to do it? That you've lost out, but then fought back and got it back, handed over to the pro who's brought the thing home. Yeah. Excellent stuff. That was a cracking race.
It really
season,
was,
wasn't it?
Yes, and this is a high bar for the Michelin Le Mans Cup to be reaching now after so many different stories and tales to tell from season 2020. Well, we've started in style and helped by just a cracking entry up and down the order. GT3s, well, it would be nice to have had the full quota of 5. I understand there's the potential for that to grow through the course of the year as well, and we always get the influx of other GT3 cars when we get to Le Mans and the 2 55-minute races as part of the Road to Le Mans event. But hopefully for Iron Lynx and their number 9 car, that's not a major issue that they've got to rectify, and they've got another month to do it in order to get their car starting at Red Bull Ring in May.
That's out of this car, Tommy Foster. Probably can't believe this. But what a moment for him. What a moment.
Well, there's a question to the team as to how much you actually tell Tommy. I mean, he is delighted by this victory, having done a season in the British F4 Championship last year with Arden. But this means a massive amount to someone who is brand new to prototype racing, 19 years old, from the UK, and sharing that car with Mikey Benham. And as you say, Benham with that success with Lannon Racing in the past with Duncan Tappy, and now victorious with a completely separate team. Wasn't a fluke then in the past with Lannon?
No, absolutely. Well, Mikey,
No,
Mikey
as
we said before this race, Mikey, you know, one of those fighty sort of gentleman drivers. He will be rightly absolutely delighted with this.
Yep.
Sets up another fight tomorrow, of course, for the European Le Mans Series, where he's also there with RRM Sport. That is Mikey Benham with Tommy Foster. What adventures await for this pair in the Michelin Le Mans Cup?
The pressure could have told on Tommy's shoulders there, knowing that all of a sudden a little bit of good fortune had put him into the race lead, and then he was in that tricky spot behind a back marker, somebody hunting him down as well. I mean, Scott Andrews wasn't a million miles away, rather the other side of Garrett Grist, but he was just lodged between back marking cars, and it was a question of how much Tommy wanted to push, because he was in the perfect place, and the last thing he wanted was any unnecessary contact. That was all avoided. Julien Andlauer stepping out of the TFT Porsche. It's another victory for Julien, and very shortly indeed Nicky Leutwiler will reach that end of the pit lane to celebrate with his co-driver.
To complete the story, by the way, completing the podium, Scott Andrews did bring the 22 United Autosports car home to complete the podium in third overall, and in GT3 behind the Porsche and the number 8 Alan Lynx car, Paolo Roberti bringing that car 11 seconds back from the Porsche, by the way. Matteo Cressoni, who'd been right on the boot lid of the number 8 car, brings the number 51A, of course, car third.
Let's make sure we mention Jerry Kraut as well, who's the teammate of Scott Andrews, who will be on the podium, and in second place for Garrett Grist and Rob Hodes. But some reaction now with our race winner Tommy Foster joining Hayley Edmonds.
I'm joined here by Tommy Foster, driver of the winning car, number 15 from RLM Sport. Tommy, what an ending to 2 very strange hours of racing. Just tell us what was going through your head when you drove past the pit lane and you saw Team Virage behind you.
I didn't even know on the last lap, because I was passing a GT car. I thought we still had one more lap. I had that last few laps was so stressful, because, you know, the full course yellow came out. We were going to box before that, then the latest decision possible, we opted to stay out, and it worked perfectly for us. I'm the happiest man on earth right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, but there was always that question mark, even for us in the commentary box, about whether that was the last lap or not. There was no last lap caption on the timing screen because it was so tight, and eventually they were just short by a couple of seconds, which made it the final run to the checkered flag. 60 laps in total then for RLRM Sport to take race 1 of the season, with a victory by only 1.3 seconds over Team Virage and Garrett Grist. Massively disappointed Garrett Grist, you have to think, with Rob Hodes. Third position going the way of United Autosports, as it did with 4th place as well. Scott Andrews in the 22 car will make the podium with teammate Jerry Kraut. Wayne Boyd in the 23 crew just missing out on the top 3 with fellow co-driver John Showerman. 5th place Cool Racing and Matt Bell and Maurice Smith, and Rinaldi Racing number 66 were 6th. Nielsen Racing 7th for Colin Noble and Tony Wells. The Phoenix Racing entered number 5 car, another Ligier, ends 8th ahead of Edec Sport. And the GT3 winners, who we'll be hearing from momentarily, PZ Obera, Iron Lynx, AF Corsa are the top 3. And the winning duo, speaking now with Hayley.
That's right, I'm down here with the winning duo from GT3 category, Nicholas Leutwiler and Julien Andlauer. Now, the first hour was a bit complicated, but after that, there was lots of changing first position, and there was so much, there's just only a few seconds between you and Iron Lynx just behind you. Just tell us about how that race went for you.
Yeah, I think it was the walkway was quite difficult. It was like a roller coaster for us. We were always switching from P1 to P2. There was a great fight from Mastronardi and Nicky in the beginning of the race, and he did very well to take the lead at the end of this stint. So I was just able to come back to the front for my stint and then try to keep a good pace. But even with the safety car, it was a bit difficult to get the tire in the temperature. But at the end, we did it. Quite happy with the whole walk of the team during the whole weekend. I think we managed quite well the week. So happy about this.
And Nikki, just a word from you. I mean, you don't change a team that wins, you know. Just tell us about, you know, how you feel, what your impressions are about this race.
We are extremely happy about this win. It was not expected. I really have to say we have a BOP that has changed and we're not really the fastest out there. But I think tactically we have done an extremely good job this first race in the season, and it's a fantastic start into a championship season.
Absolutely, and what's going to be set out to be a very exciting one. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, the BOP from my perspective looked all right because their car won at the end of the day. But Rino Mastronardi has always been a talent. He's a champion, remember. They held him back along with new teammate Paolo Roberti, and the double fist pump there from Nicky Leutwiler and from Julien Andlauer. Very happy indeed with their afternoon/evening's work. So at 4:30 this afternoon, which seems like a completely different week or month, frankly, long time ago, and a long old race. But this is how it all began on the run down into the first corner. There was not the ideal start for Torsten Kratz, who rotated right in the middle of the field. That could have been a nasty old incident, and the Wochenspiegel team, Monschau team, head in hands briefly. Then the shuffling of the order a bit later on in the lap as LMP3 cars slowly found their way by. The first big incident of the motor race involved, sadly, Daniel Schneider in the 32 United Autosports car, and a similar incident for the number 3 DKR Engineering car of John Brownson, which was able to rejoin. Amazingly, Daniel Schneider got back into the race, albeit briefly, just drove the car to the pit lane and it was retired on the spot. The first of a couple of spins for CD Sport. This was a nasty incident for Mühlner Motorsports. The 21 car going headlong into the barrier. Erwin Creed involved in that incident, but thankfully able to walk away. Then a mad rush for the pits once the pit lane was open for the first extended stop. 2 130-second pit stops needing to be done in the 2-hour race. Nicky Leutwiler rather catching Rino Mastronardi napping into turn 5. That was the moment when the Porsche got back in front of the Ferrari, and the 911 kind of never looked back after that, the stealth-like overtake. 37 Josh Skelton goes for a move that was on at the time, but he just couldn't arrest the speed of the Cool Racing car, and the Phoenix machine that it was trying to overtake, trying to overtake, did well to avoid, but it left us with Josh Skelton in the gravel and a safety car, another safety car being called in order for its recovery. Garrett Grist worked his way up the order after a really good overtake on Thelo Shalal, and then we had the shenanigans that involved Team Virage. Ultimately, Virage miss out, and it is RLRM Sports who judge their pit stop to perfection. Let's hear the national anthem of the winning team. RLRM Sports with their drivers Mikey Benham and Tommy Foster are the first winners this season of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and if that is a sign of things to come, then we are in for a stonking season. Remember, races still to appear in a month's time at we missed Red Bull Ring, so we head straight to Paul Ricard, and then events at Monza, Le Mans, Spa-Francorchamps and the Algarve International Circuit to end the season. Lots of 2-hour races to look forward to, and the 2 55-minute affairs which accompany the 24 hours of Le Mans in the lead up to that great event over the weekend of the 20th, 21st and 22nd of August. But because this event is being run to strict COVID protocol, with everyone tested prior to the event, we can partake in a proper podium, unlike the stripped down version in 2020. Let's go back to the highlights then. Another chance to witness the race start, which was so busy, and 3 abreast cars, but Torsten Kratz will have really wished he wasn't involved in this starting melee. Did incredibly well to haul the car away from the danger zone there, because he could have been collected by 2, 3 or 4 cars. Thankfully and amazingly, contact was avoided, and the battling continued for the number 11 car, the WTM, powered by Phoenix Machine. Indications there from the team that maybe Torsten had some rear damage or rear contact. Big crash on the infield section for Daniel Schneider. Likewise, the DKR engineering car of John Brownson was heavily damaged. Very good scrapping between the Ferrari of Iron Lynx and the Porsche of TFT, and there was more of that to come. A first spin of the race for CD Sport. Big crash for Erwin Creed in the number 21 machine, which goes off the track and out of the race, I'm afraid to say. And that car heavily damaged both front and rear. Meanwhile, then the influx of machinery to the pit lane as the pit lane window was opened at the 50-minute marker. And the Porsche slithering its way up the inside of Rino Mastronardi to retake the GT3 lead, after Rino Mastronardi, surprisingly and not very unusually, caught napping there. Then the battling commenced between Garrett Grist and Thelo Shalal. There was a spin for Josh Skelton as he went for a move on the Phoenix racing car of Hamza Ovega, but just carrying a bit too much speed into turn 10 was Josh Skelton, and the safety car would be deployed again to make sure that Josh's car could be recovered safely. Garrett Grist then turning on the style by overtaking Shalal into the first corner. There was then this spin for the CD Sport machine, and again the need for a full course yellow for it to be recovered, and Team Virage missed a beat here. They kept the 71 car out, thinking maybe it was going to be a longer full course yellow than it turned out to be. The Tommy Foster car from RLRM Sport had already made a stop. That was the prime opportunity for the British team to outpace the Polish squad, and although Garrett Grist was close at the line, it was to be no cigar for the Canadian driver, and Tommy Foster and Mikey Benham take the first victory of the season. Quite a story to tell down at RLRM Sport, one that will, well, the chatter will continue long into the night, and the debriefing, particularly down at Team Virage. Congratulations to BZ Obera, Zurichsee by TFT as well. Easy to overlook their race victory, but it was a dominant one by 11 seconds in the end over Paolo Roberti, and the drivers that finished in 3rd position are already on the podium in the GT3 category. So that's the AF Corsa entry for Ken Abe and Matteo Crisoni. To the 2nd slip of the podium for Iron Lynx, Rino Mastronardi and Paolo Roberti. But the biggest grins on the podium will be reserved for Nicky Leutwiler and for Julien Andlauer. Let's hear the Swiss national anthem for TFT. The national anthem of Switzerland for PZ Obera Zurichsee by TFT. They are the victorious team, and the opening round in the Michelin Le Mans Cup of 7 going the way of a Porsche, but there are a number of Ferraris in the entry, either this weekend or still to come, including the number 9 car that will be waiting to swing the pendulum towards the Italian mark rather than the German machine. And we've still got the Mercedes as well, which is certainly capable of a podium, I think, with Kenneth Heyer and Wim Spinoy. So it's going to be a close old season between the GT3 competitors, no doubt about that. We'll get some confirmation of the finishing positions then of the overall classification. RLR M Sport win it by 1.3 seconds from the Team Virage combination of Rob Hodes and Garrett Grist. United Autosports 3rd and 4th ahead of the Cool Racing duo Maurice Smith and Rob Bell. They in turn are ahead of Nicolas Varone for Rinaldi Racing, sharing that car with Alexander Matschel, and GT3 going the way of TFT, as I've mentioned, ahead of Iron Lynx, with AF Corsa completing the podium. We didn't see a race start for car number 9. Still trying to pin down exactly what the technical issues were for that car, but I see no issue with it returning for the next round. I'd forgotten, actually, we missed Red Bull Ring as far as part of this championship, so we're straight to Paul Ricard in 2 months' time, and then very much on the approach to Le Mans. Paul Ricard in the south of France, Monza in the north of Italy, and then those 2 races that support the 24 Hours of Le Mans in August.
I think one of the other encouraging things here, Johnny, about this is that we had saw good form from some of the new teams here. Phoenix were very quick, Black Falcon were very quick. We're going to see some new names at the sharp end of the field throughout this year, and that's another good thing about the Michelin Le Mans Cup in 2021.
All boding very well indeed for a cracking season in the Le Mans Cup, and so many different teams competing in LMP3 capable of top 5 positions. 1 or 2 fell away because of big incidents, because of minor ones, the odd hiccup here and there, and Team Virage will be kicking themselves even now to think that they were denied a win, but it was all down to the quick thinking of RLR M Sport. And Team Virage will have to just look at the strategy a little bit closer for next time we are racing, which is the 5th of June, round 2 for the Michelin Le Mans Cup at Circuit Paul Ricard in the south of France. See you there.